One meet Jin Ho, a legendary MMA fighter who dominated the world championship for 40 years. Millions watch his fights because the guy is an absolute combat genius. Even the cameramen can barely track his blinding speed. Nobody could touch him. No one ever gave him a real challenge. Jin Ho won everything. Life was too easy. His secret hobby was tackling brutal video games, but even Elden Ring felt too simple. So he spent 10 years mastering an ultra-hard game called Last Saber. Naturally, he dominated that virtual world too, leaving him with absolutely no rivals. He was basically Saitama, completely miserable because he lacked a single worthy opponent. Then the heavens actually answered his complaints. Sudden lightning split the sky. The bolt blasted his apartment, killing him instantly. Talk about his first defeat. Next thing he knew, Jin Ho woke up elsewhere. An unfamiliar girl stared down at him. She snapped that they were falling behind. Right now, they are escaping from a dark prison. This girl, prisoner number 172, warns him this is their only breakout chance. Confused, Jin Ho looks around, noticing the bizarre uniforms and the strange flags. This is no dream. The girl frantically pulls him along so they do not get left behind. But suddenly, Jin Ho halts, warning her to stay alert and watch their surroundings. This is a high-security fortress. Escaping this easily makes absolutely no sense. He forcefully yanks the girl back. Meanwhile, the other inmates sprint toward the exit. One guy even laughs hysterically as he nears the gate, thinking they actually made it. But their hope is instantly crushed. Out of nowhere, a monster appears. The beast rips the laughing man's arm clean off. Enter the ruthless General Clark. Cackling, the general orders his soldiers to execute every single runner. The girl panics in horror, but Jin Ho immediately realizes this was all a setup. Terrified inmates scramble backward, leaving the cold ground drenched in blood. Soon after, Clark orders the survivors to gather, while guards scream for them to line up. Dead bodies litter the courtyard. Number 172 stares at the carnage and retches. Spotting her, a brutal guard marches over and kicks her hard in the gut. He snaps that nobody moves without permission, threatening to murder anyone who disobeys. Then he turns a glaring eye toward Jin Ho, calling him a spineless coward. He mocks him for lacking the courage to even try running. The guard sneers that mages are pathetic cowards, promising he will regret surviving today. He spits out the name Arahan before warning them to prepare for their coming punishment. Staring at his reflection in a muddy puddle, Jin Ho ponders. Is he truly this man named Arahan now? A grueling week passes by in captivity. Daily life is endless rock stacking, just pointless labor designed to break their spirits. Because the inmates are mages, the guards treat them with utter disgust and hatred. Jin Ho remembers trying to cast magic the previous night, but nothing happened. This makes no sense, considering the Arahan bloodline is famous for elite magic users. The guard suddenly snaps him back to reality, yelling at him to work faster. Lifting the stones, Jin Ho suddenly spots a glowing system screen floating in midair. He wonders what this bizarre window is. Later, in the mess hall, he stares blankly at his plate. He reflects on how hard he must labor just to earn a single, miserable meal. Number 172 approaches. She asks if he is planning to skip eating today. Instead of answering, he slides his tray over. Surprised, she notes that he is different from the others, who completely avoid her. As it turns out, the legendary high mage of the esteemed Arahan family is. His family has red eyes, and rumors say he can kill with a single glance. Jin Ho wonders why she is even in this prison. She warns him to watch his back today. She claims the daily workload increased because of him, and several of the inmates are. Furious about it, she tells him to watch out, especially for inmate 589, he asks. If warning him puts her in danger, but she shrugs it off, Jin Ho then tells her to step back as heavy, echoing footsteps fill the corridor. Jin Ho tells her that her warning just came true. Several men glare at him and she freezes in terror upon seeing inmate 589. The furious giant blames Jin Ho for their massive workload. Jin Ho mockingly asks if that is true. But 589 cuts him off with a massive, heavy punch. The blow lands squarely, shocking the woman, but the attacker quickly looks confused. Smiling, Jin Ho shrugs off the impact completely unharmed and drives a knee straight into the giant's face, shocking everyone, but the man does not take any real damage. Jin Ho is stunned, and as he is lifted off the floor, he realizes how incredibly weak his new body is. The inmate flings him across the cafeteria. Like a rag doll, the brute mocks him, asking where the little rat went, and Declaring that he is finished, suddenly the system interface pops up once again. Flashing screen message announces that synchronization is finally complete, leaving. Jin Ho with a wide grin on his face. The cafeteria goes dead silent as Zed feels his new power surging through his veins. Ready to fight, he warms up and notices how much lighter his body feels. Overflowing with confidence, he challenges the giant again. The brute just laughs, calling Zed arrogant for a guy abandoned by his own clan. Zed tells him to shut up and dares him to bring it on. The inmate charges forward, yelling that he will end Zed right here, but Zed counters. Instantly with a swift kick, the giant blocks and grabs his leg furiously, roaring that he will teach Zed a lesson he will never forget, but right. Then Zed spins and delivers a brutal kick with his other leg, staggering the giant in total confusion. The man cannot even process what just happened. Before he can recover, Zed unleashes another kick, following it up with a relentless barrage of heavy strikes. Unable to defend himself, the brute takes every single blow. Zed pivots and delivers one final, crushing kick, knocking his opponent out cold on the floor. Looking down at him, Zed mutters that this is exactly why he hates using his legs to fight. Furious, the other inmates start closing in. Zed steps over the fallen leader and warns them that if they take another step, he will snap their boss's arm. The lackeys hesitate, unsure if he is bluffing, but then Zed presses his foot onto their leader, which is enough to send one coward running to call the guard. The woman walks up to Zed, asking when he learned to fight like that, and wonders if he was always this tall. He just shrugs, joking that if she keeps lifting rocks, she will probably grow taller too. Zed turns his attention back to his status window to check his attributes. He is shocked to find his mana at 0. He cannot comprehend this. He is a mage, so a body with 0 mana makes absolutely no sense. Lying down, he wonders how he could have reincarnated into such a pathetic character. Trying to stay calm, Zed analyzes his stats and notices his strength, luck, agility, and perception are all completely maxed. Even with maxed out stats, he realizes a human body shouldn't be able to handle 100 points of strength. Training could overcome the physical penalties, but his current diet is garbage. Then Zed spots several S-rank traits he has never seen before. Clearly, he still has plenty of time left to figure out a solution for his mana issues. With a heavy sigh, the woman sighs that it is that time again, leaving Zed confused. She explains those prisoners are on death row, scheduled for execution after their final meal. Zed nods in understanding, then casually asks the woman for her name. Surprised, she realizes she has only ever called him by his prisoner number. Her name is just Rio, she says, because street folk do not have clans. Before asking for his, he replies that he is Z Arahan, then asks if she wants to escape this dump. Rio admits she does not plan on staying long anyway, having her own reasons to flee. She adds that the only exit is the front gate, and the head guard holds the only key. Zed asks if beating the guardian is the only way to secure that key. Rio warns him that even though the guardian Clark is retired, he is a total beast, practically the living embodiment of pure hatred against all mages. Zed wonders if he can truly take down a retired 5-circuit knight. Rio points out that stealing the key would be much easier, since street kids learn how to pick pockets before they learn basic manners. She smiles, and with this new plan, Zed feels confident about their escape. Tomorrow, the guard announces that under Clark's command, their daily work is doubling. Warden smugly dares anyone to try and rebel against the guardian. One inmate speaks up to protest, but a cold blade is instantly drawn and pressed against his throat. The guard sneers that he just delivers orders. If anyone has an issue, they can take it up with management. As the inmates grumble, the guard mockingly asks if they still do not understand who is to blame. Instantly, hostile glares shift toward a coughing Zed. The guard announces he is stepping out for a smoke and will return later. Leaving Zed completely stranded with the hostile mob, he quickly warns Rio to back away, realizing Clark engineered this prison riot to use him as bait. Rio retreats in panic, knowing that even the guards want him dead now. Surrounding him, the prisoners vow to end his life. Zed merely tells himself this was inevitable. The entire crowd charges, guarding his front. He easily floors the first attacker, slamming him face first. The mob screams death threats at him. Instead of fearing them, Zed smiles as the wave of inmates swarms him. He does not flinch, unleashing a flurry of strikes. That long-lost sensation of battle finally returns to him. Filling him with pure adrenaline, he is locked into the zone, slipping a blindside strike to land a brutal counter kick to the jaw, taking the thugs down effortlessly. From the shadows, Rio watches the spectacle in shock. Stranger silently approaches and calls her name. Meanwhile, Zed remains completely unstoppable. Leaving his attackers dazed, he connects with a heavy blow, ducks, and retaliates instantly. Riding this absolute rush of battle, he craves even more action, a sinister grin spreading across his face. Zed suddenly hears heavy footsteps. Zed turns around. A thug holding Rio hostage barks at him to stop making trouble and just die already. Zed glares back with a furious grin, calling them absolute trash, and warning them that they just made the absolute biggest mistake of their lives. Zed hurls an insult, ready to strike, but an inmate just laughs mockingly, calling him a weak 2 circuit knight, shouting that he will die right here. But then Zed completely vanishes into thin air, leaving his captor dazed. The inmate gasps to see him suddenly standing right behind them, screaming that this is impossible since he shouldn't even be able to cast spells. Zed coldly notes it isn't magic and unleashes a devastating flurry of strikes, knocking the guy out cold, right after Warden Clark steps in, furiously demanding an explanation. Before Zed can even speak, Rio interrupts, explaining he was held hostage so they could kill Zed. Surveying the scene, the warden concludes that everyone present is utterly useless. Clark sneers, asking if Zed relied on spells to win. Zed just mocks the man, playing dumb, which absolutely enrages Clark. The warden instantly unleashes a crushing aura, pinning everyone nearby straight to the floor. Yet Clark is stunned that Zed remains completely unfazed, protected by an immunity trait. Zed quietly observes that this is a terrifying mental defense skill, but considers it basic standard for a warrior who once stood at the absolute apex of Earth. A mere 5 circuit novice has no hope of suppressing him. Meanwhile, the warden stands in absolute shock, baffled by how Zed remains upright without drawing upon any mana. The warden grits his teeth and intensifies his pressure, yet Zed doesn't flinch. Zed's S-rank immunity triggers, making it clear that Clark has zero chance of suppressing him. The warden is left utterly speechless. The guards, suffocating under the heavy pressure, desperately plead with the warden to stop. He finally relents, and Zed silently notes that had Clark kept going, he would have drawn his blade. Annoyed, the warden glares deeply and commands everyone back to their duties, but Zed stops him, declaring he can't leave yet. He states he is done hauling stones and getting ambushed, threatening to wipe out the entire camp on the spot. Rio gasps, asking if he has lost his mind, but Zed boldly demands to be placed on death row next. The warden is stunned, warning that he will overlook this if it is a joke. Zed insists he is entirely serious, demanding Clark log his name directly onto the crystal ball. The warden commands his guards to retrieve it. Zed casually declares that he will order his final feast immediately, demanding a massive portion of rare variety beef, legendary as the finest delicacy in Last Savior. It is said even a single taste can instantly restore depleted strength. Zed points out that since this dinner is quite literally costing his life, it is the absolute least they can offer, especially since he only handles S-rank loot. Rio nervously asks if he is truly certain about joining death row. Zed replies that Rio is tagging along with him, demanding a feast prepared for 2. Clark reluctantly agrees, and Zed notes that this is bare minimum compensation for taking an Arahan life, because the exquisite meat is incredibly scarce. Acquiring it takes a full week. Rio grumbles that their final day is closing in fast. Meanwhile, Zed remembers that once any stat reaches 100 points, surplus points automatically transfer to other attributes. But because he is an anomaly with locked stats, his only path forward is to he dumps those points straight into mana. A week later, a guard finally calls him out. Zed asks if it is finally dinner time. The steak they bring out is incredibly delicious. Rio is literally crying, claiming she has never eaten anything this good in her life. Thanks to this amazing food, several of their debuffs vanish, are temporarily disabled. Instantly, Zed feels the block on his experience points loosen. He is satisfied to see his first major milestone is now complete. Meanwhile, in his office, we see Clark still completely reeling from the shock. He struggles to comprehend how Zed resisted his crushing pressure without tapping into any magic, especially since Clark is a seasoned 5 circuit knight, even in his retirement. The warden swears he will not fail again, promising the kid will pay dearly. For humiliating him, down in the cells, Rio thanks Zed, saying she could die happy right now. Zed calmly replies he has zero plans of dying. Inside, he feels an incredible surge of energy and cannot wait to test out his new powers. When the heavy door swings open, Zed knows Clark is finally here, curious about his next move. The director growls his name, but Zed instantly mocks him, asking if he is upset about the empty plates, staring him straight down. Clark fumes silently, viewing Zed as nothing but a spoiled brat. Riding on his family name, he reaches out, grabbing the boy, thinking that today this kid will writhe in absolute agony. The Arahan bloodline is the absolute peak of magical elite. Anyone holding secrets about them stands to make a massive fortune, potentially becoming filthy rich overnight. Zed just stands there and watches Clark draw closer, immediately recognizing the active magic tool in his grip. Clark roars, asking how he likes this immense power, but the director is utterly shocked to see Zed still standing tall. Furious, he lashes out at Rio, knocking her unconscious. Seeing this, Zed coldly tells the man to behave himself, completely. Snapping completely, Clark lunges forward, unleashing his massive aura to crush the kid. Zed easily breaks the hold, reminding the director to take it easy. He warns Clark that if he truly wants him dead, execute him publicly instead of whining like a sore loser. Zed silently notes that his own mana has zero effect on the director, meaning he must be at least a Sixth Circuit mage. That is when Zed finally releases the true power of his Arahan bloodline, which lets him match someone far stronger than himself. Shaken and deeply humiliated, Clark finally shuts down the magic device. Zed asks if the tantrum is over. Clark ignores the mockery and barks that the execution is scheduled for tomorrow morning. Back in his quiet office, Clark drafts a letter to share his freshly stolen intelligence regarding the Arants. He feels absolutely drained from pumping his mana into that taxing magic device, but forces himself to finish writing the critical report. Meanwhile, Rio lies on the floor. Zed asks if she is okay, and she groans in pain. Zed praises her anyway, impressed by her incredibly quick fingers to swipe the director's keys. He commends her swift work, and Rio asks if he is truly all right after resisting Clark's overwhelming aura for so long. Zed claims he is fine, telling her that if she wants power, she must keep stacking those stones. He happily notices that his growth delay penalties have finally decreased, realizing that Variety's steak is genuinely delicious and packed with crazy nutrients. Zed wishes he could shatter all his seals right now, but we know that's not happening just yet. Zed calls out to Rio, telling her they are breaking out tonight once she recovers. Rio worries the director will catch them, but Zed quickly reassures her. Clark is totally drained from wasting his mana and is likely passed out cold. When Rio questions his confidence, Zed knows the truth. Clark's powerful magic artifact was so rare he cannot even remember its name. By now the director must be out cold. As night falls, Zed declares it is time to escape. Rio asks him one last time if he is truly ready, and he simply tells her to stay behind if she is scared. She notes they do not have a key, wondering what his plan is, but Zed merely tells her to step back. He kicks the heavy iron door with all his might, stunned by his raw strength. Rio wonders if he is even a mage. Hearing the loud crash, the guards rush over and yell at him. Zed quips that the situation is pretty clear. They are escaping, and the duo immediately bolts down the hall. Rio screams at him to look ahead as they run right into a squad of guards blocking their path. Swords are drawn to stop them at all costs. Zed yells at her to keep pushing forward, and Rio complies despite her terror. One guard lunges forward with his blade, but Zed counters. In a flash, he grabs the guard's face and slams him down, crashing him into the others, scattering their line. The lead guard looks back in utter shock, quickly growing enraged. Before he can react, Zed strikes him squarely in the throat, leaving him gasping for breath. Without wasting a second, Zed charges the remaining group, stopping right before the downed soldiers. As one reaches out, Zed kicks his hand away. The others raise their weapons, dodging a sharp slash. Zed leaps and spins midair to land a kick on his foe. Pivoting on his heel, he evades another blade and boots a guard squarely in the face, knocking him out. He spots two more guards rushing him, taking them both down in a flash. Watching from a safe distance, Rio mutters that this whole display is pure madness. Later, Clark returns to the dungeon only to find his guards unconscious on the floor. One soldier struggles to sit up, offering apologies while reporting that the captives have escaped. Furious, the director immediately demands a massive manhunt for the escapees. Just outside the prison, Rio keeps watch, informing Zed that it seems they have successfully lost their pursuers. She notes they have reached the nearest village. Zed worries this location is too obvious and that search parties will swarm the area soon, but Rio points out other settlements are far too distant. Their best plan is to hide among the locals, handing him civilian clothes. Zed grumbles that they look like beggar rags, though he still puts them on anyway. Rio instructs him to stay put and wait while she leaves to gather supplies. 2 hours later, she returns to their hiding spot. She managed to secure colored contacts, since red eyes immediately expose an Arahan warrior. Rio explains that in the southern territories, ruled by the Baho clan, blue eyes are far more common. In his previous life, his game character was a Baho, but now he is an Arahan, snapping him out of his days. Rio announces she found a safe haven and urges him to follow. Inside a dusty, abandoned barn, Zed wonders exactly how things came to this. Zed wonders if he can truly trust a petty thief like Rio, but right now, he has absolutely no choice. Meanwhile, Rio is also questioning if she can trust him at all. The next morning, Zed realizes just how filthy and dark the place actually was, hardly believing he had actually slept in such a dump. Rio cuts in, teasing that for a pampered nobleman, this must be a nightmare to sleep in, but Zed refuses to settle, promising to find a way to make some cash. Rio asks how, even offering to teach him the art of pickpocketing. But he instantly shuts her down, telling her to find a local arena. An underground fight club is the absolute perfect stage for a champion like him. A short while later, the roaring crowd is going wild. Completely shocked, Rio asks if they are in the right spot, and Zed just nods. Down in the ring, a brutal barrage of heavy blows is unfolding. One fighter desperately struggles to guard, but gets knocked out cold, making the crowd roar even louder. Rio is still paralyzed by the sheer brutality. Suddenly, a new challenger enters the ring and instantly lands a clean, straight punch, following it up with a devastating flurry of strikes. Rio warns Zed that the victim will die if this keeps up, only to realize that Zed has vanished. Suddenly, a collective gasp echoes through the arena. Zed has stepped straight into the ring, telling the fighter to stop since his opponent is already unconscious. From the sidelines, Rio watches the madness unfold, completely terrified. Meanwhile, Zed openly confronts the referee for letting the beatdown continue. The fighter backs off, sneeringly asking Zed if he is a noble. Zed asks if he still hasn't realized the truth, calling him nothing but a pathetic fraud. Instantly, the entire arena begins booing him, so Zed boldly announces he will take charge and put on a show that is truly unforgettable. From the crowd, Rio screams at him. She yells that there was no reason to get involved in this dangerous mess, especially knowing what's at stake, but Zed tells her to shut up and bet all their money on him. He promises they will feast like kings. Once he wins, with that, the battle begins. His opponent secretly wonders how this teenager can stay so calm, unable to understand how a 15-year-old kid possesses such perfect, steady posture and breathing. He finds Zed utterly terrifying, shaking uncontrollably without knowing why. He gets furious, realizing he is actually afraid of a mere child. Before he can even strike, Zed counters with 2 lightning-fast punches straight to his face, backing off slightly. Zed explains that pulling the shoulders back before throwing a punch is a mistake. The blow should travel directly from your guard straight to the target, taking the absolute shortest, cleanest path possible. Even as he speaks, he delivers another massive blow. In the stands, Rio watches in absolute awe as she sees Zed effortlessly dominate his opponent, standing completely stunned. Meanwhile, back in the ring, Akaz is utterly shocked to find himself losing to a kid, completely humiliated and unable to comprehend how Zed is dodging and countering so effortlessly. Zed decides to end the game, finishing the match with a devastating blow that finally sends Akaz crashing down. He looks at the referee, asking if he is going to call it. With no way left to rig the match, the ref has no choice but to declare Zed the victor. Privately, Zed realizes he probably should have held back a little more. Later on, Zed finds himself arguing over his payout, which is way lower than he expected. Terrified, the clerk claims that was the exact amount he was handed. Zed grumbles that the payout shouldn't be this low, calling Rio over to ask how much she bet, reminding her he told her to go all in. Rio replies that she hates gambling and they needed money for dinner so she saved some. Suddenly, an unfamiliar woman interrupts, asking. For a moment of their time, Zed asks who she is, smirking. She says he probably doesn't know her, then introduces herself as Herna, the arena manager. Zed just brushes past her, saying he has no time for this. Instantly, guards block his path. Zed asks if they want to end up like awakens, and the guards stay silent. Herna mentions awakens was one of the top champions she recruited, asking Zed if he gets what she's implying. In the end, she says she'll let him go today, since they will meet again. Anyway, admitting she just loves strong fighters like him. Elsewhere, Rio warns Zed that he shouldn't be so arrogant with Herna. She explains that Herna isn't just the arena manager, she basically runs the entire city and is a greedy, cunning fox. Zed knows she only approached him out of pure self-interest. Back when he was Jin, this happened all the time. The moment he made a name for himself, everyone wanted a piece of him. His talent was highly profitable. Zed reflects that meeting his old coach was pure luck, since he was the one who made him a champion. Thanks to him, Zed stopped being a naive kid who fell for every cheap trick. Snapping out of his thoughts, Zed hears Rio talking about the variety meat and tells her to hold on. He realizes the meat isn't actually variety, finding this highly suspicious, since it took the guards a whole week to get some due to its exclusivity, meaning there is no way all these people are eating the exact same thing. Rio asks if it really matters once it's in your stomach, but Zed says it does. They are not getting any of the meat's real benefits, just getting ripped off in a total scam. Just then, the waiter tells him to just eat and get lost, complaining that Zed is taking too long for someone who only ordered a single portion. Zed cuts him off, stating he ordered variety and demanding they bring him the real thing. The waiter replies that street tricks won't work here. Zed then demands to see the boss, threatening to make a massive scene if they don't comply. Seeing no other option, the waiter agrees to take him to the back. When they get to the back, the boss asks if they're the ones causing trouble. Zed replies that he isn't looking for a fight, but the restaurant is the one causing problems by selling fake food. The boss says he likes brave young men, but they picked the absolute worst time to act tough. Zed fires back, telling the man he's way too confident and that if he takes a step forward, he's going to lose his life. Right then, the boss's henchmen attack, ready to crush Zed's ego, but as expected, none of them can even land a hit on him. Zed easily counters, slamming the men into the ground with massive force. The boss is in complete shock, seeing all the damage, while Rio cheers for the victory. Terrified, the boss asks what Zed wants. Zed says that now they're finally speaking the same language and demands fair compensation for the trouble. He orders the man to refund their money and pay for all they get premium food, including real variety steaks. The boss quickly agrees to everything. Later, Rio is incredibly happy, having never slept in such a nice bed before. She tells Zed he is amazing, expecting nothing less from nobleman. Zed explains that if rumors of fake meat ever spread, the restaurant would go under. The boss had no choice but to agree. Soon they head to bed. In the middle of the night, Rio stays awake, asking if Zed is sleeping. She watches him, notices he is still, and prepares to slip out. Zed, who is secretly awake, just watches her leave in silence. A few days later, Rio asks when breakfast is ready because she is starving. She suggests Zed should take a day off, trying to understand why he loves training, since mages usually hate sweating and physical effort. Meanwhile, Zed is frustrated, wondering why his mana is not increasing at all. He finally tells Rio it is time to eat, promising steak today, making her incredibly happy. As they walk through the city, Zed asks how many gold coins remain. Rio says only a few are left. Zed thinks to himself that she must take him for an idiot just because of his noble family, but he played that game for years and knows 50 gold coins do not just disappear like that. He wonders if Rio is gambling or if it is pure greed, but decides to keep playing dumb for now. Back at the restaurant, a thug tells the boss that Zed has arrived. The owner is far too proud to accept that humiliation and declares he will have his revenge today. When Zed and Rio reach their table, the waiter says he prepared plenty of meat and tells them to call if they need anything. Zed is highly suspicious of this warm welcome. He notices there are no assassins inside the restaurant and tries to figure out what is going on. Rio snaps him back, telling him to eat. She says their wraps are special, meant to be eaten in one bite. Zed thinks everything seems fine, but warns her they must remain Careful, just as he is about to eat, he detects poison and yells at Rio to spit out whatever is in her mouth immediately. Rio spits it out. In panics, asking if she will die from the poison, Zed reassures her that it was a tiny dose that should not affect her. He finally understands their plan, but notes it is useless against him since he is immune to poison. Rio asks how he noticed it when the food had no smell or taste. He replies, it is because he is an Arahan. She asks what they will do now that the restaurant is trying to kill them, and Zed replies they are going to make them pay dearly for this. The boss wonders why Zed is bossing everyone around instead of just eating quietly and leaving. Zed tells him he called him over to settle some unfinished business, believing they will die soon anyway since they ate all the food. The boss asks what the misunderstanding is this time. Zed says they came to make peace by sharing a meal, and Rio hands a piece of the wrap to the boss, suspecting something. The boss hesitates, but Zed explains it is a gesture of reconciliation. The boss refuses the food. Zed asks why he will not eat it, questioning if the meat is poisoned. The boss denies it, but Zed cuts him off, saying he seems to enjoy playing games. Zed kicks the table aside and walks straight toward the boss. It turned out they never actually ate the meat. They just hid it, Zed explains. He only planned on dropping by occasionally, then asks how the man dared to poison his food. The boss demands proof, his pupils flashing with their true color. Zed asks how he dares deceive an Arahan. The boss instantly panics when he sees those crimson eyes. Zed declares the man will pay for trying to kill an Arahan, warning him that if a single person dies out here, nobody would even notice. Terrified, the boss begs for mercy, wondering why a legendary Western Arahan would be the South pretending to be a mere wanderer, since he is completely overwhelmed by Zed's immense power. Zed agrees to show mercy this once, but demands his identity remain a strict secret. On top of that, he wants half of the boss's wealth to overlook the entire matter. Deeply relieved by the Arahan's mercy, the boss doesn't hesitate to split his fortune, knowing that money is completely useless if he's dead. Popping his contact lens back in, Zed tells Rio they are leaving town as soon as they secure the cash. Suddenly, Herna interrupts them, pointing out that Zed has exposed himself as someone highly important. Zed wonders if she already realized he is indeed an Arahan. With the boss too terrified to speak, there is only one source she could have gotten that information from. They decide to take their conversation somewhere private. Once alone, Zed asks if she has business to discuss. Herna cuts in, saying she actually came to talk to a client. Zed then puts together that Rio is the client. Herna explains she investigated what the girl requested, but she needs more cash. Rio snaps, protesting she already paid a fortune, but Herna counters that the sum barely covers her daily meals, and tracking down a missing person is incredibly difficult. Watching this unfold, Zed connects the dots and directly asks Herna if fulfilling her request means she will keep her promise to find Rio's missing sister. Herna agrees, revealing her demand is simple. She wants him to fight awakens again. Zed calmly accepts and asks if this clears Rio's debt. She assures him it will, claiming she never breaks promises. Later, Zed asks Rio why she looks so gloomy, even though they have just pocketed a fortune. She apologizes for lying. Zed admits he knew the truth from the very start, though he had no idea she was working for Herna. He explains he played along because her constant assistance was well worth it. He then asks her never to hide things again, warning that the worst thing in this world is betrayal. He reassures her that her past does not define her, and Rio promises she won't forget. She begs Zed not to go through with the rematch against awakens, suggesting they simply take the cash and run. He asks what they will do about her sister. Rio argues it is pointless because Herna will only betray them again. It turns out Rio was never naive enough to be fooled. She was simply so desperate she clung to a rotten rope, fully knowing it could snap at any moment. Herna was precisely the type of person who would betray a desperate child. Zed admits he originally planned on leaving but changed his mind. Rio warns him that Herna will throw absolutely everything she has against him in this rematch, so it is better to avoid it, but Zed says he is taking the fight anyway. He explains that whenever he spots trash, he feels obligated to clean it up. Meanwhile, back in Carrion, the guards are men are rushing around. One of them reports that everyone is gathered. Clark is absolutely furious as he warns his men, telling them he will finish them off this time, declaring that Zed Aaron's days are officially numbered. Few days later, Zed wonders why Akaz is so confident and senses something is wrong. Rio makes him promise that if things get too dangerous, he will forfeit. The referee starts the rematch, but the crowd is immediately confused by what they see. Rio realizes right away that he is copying Zed's movements. Akaz thinks to himself that the only reason he showed up for this fight was because Herna guaranteed he would win. He tries to figure out how his opponent can be an Arahan without any mana. He focuses on landing direct punches and kicks, boasting that he practiced all of Zed's moves and realized just how useful they are. Zed finds this unexpected, takes a closer look at his stance and lands a direct punch on him. Akaz tries to process the blow for a moment, realizes how weak the punch actually was, and screams that Zed is nothing but a monolith failure. The crowd does not understand how Akaz suddenly got so strong, but Zed quickly realizes he is wearing an ogre belt. The item reduces all physical damage by 90%, since Zed has 0 mana. Akaz has literally become his worst possible matchup. Watching from a distance, Rio tries to understand why Zed cannot seem to deal any real damage. She yells out, begging him to stop, but he just tells her to watch what he is about to do. That is when she notices Zed is actually smiling, back in the ring. Akaz asks him if he is going to surrender. Zed says no, claiming he was just surprised. Akaz flinches when he sees his opponent change his stance, and Zed tells him this is the moment he has been waiting for. Before Akaz can even process what that means, he takes a direct kick to the head that leaves him completely dazed. Zed immediately follows up with a kick straight to the stomach. In that exact moment, the strongest man on earth, Jin Ho, feels true excitement for the very first time. No one had ever been able to last a single minute against him, meaning he could never use his full power in a fight. Seeing that Akaz is still standing after taking all those hits, Zed, or rather Jin Ho, realizes this is going to be his best fight yet. Since his opponent won't go down easily, he goes in for another high kick. Akaz tries to block it, but quickly realizes this is no ordinary strike. The kick changes direction midair and connects with his head again. Zed spins and lands a clean hit right to Akaz's stomach, and this time Akaz actually feels the damage. Jin Ho keeps unleashing a barrage of blows. Akaz panics, completely unable to defend himself, while Zed tells him he better not fall, especially since he claimed those hits did not even hurt. Desperate, Akaz thinks about giving up but gets hit again, shocking everyone watching. Without missing a beat, Zed unleashes a horizontal kick right into the ogre belt, shattering the item. Akaz collapses to the ground. Zed asks him what is wrong and questions if he is really not going to get back up and keep fighting. Akaz admits defeat, but Zed cuts him off. Stepping on his mouth, Zed tells him this is not enough yet and says it would be a waste to end it like this. Right then, his contact lens fails, revealing his true pupil color. Akaz is stunned by those crimson eyes. The bystander collapses instantly, just seconds later. Zed feels a bizarre energy surging through his veins, realizing the long-awaited moment has finally arrived. His mana has finally crossed above 0. A rush of pure adrenaline floods his body. Amidst the chaos, he notices the entire market has fallen dead silent. Rio rushes over, asking about his lenses. Zed worries his real eyes are exposed, realizing they are even redder than before. Suddenly, the gasping crowd recognizes the crimson hue. A man panics, screaming that he is an Arahan and everyone will die. Zed immediately orders Rio to flee before the city guards arrive. He shouts back that he will return to collect on her promise. Absolutely livid, Herna regrets ignoring her own henchmen and vows to annihilate Zed Arahan. Elsewhere, Herna broods over her failure. She wasted 600 gold coins on a 3-year contract for Akaz, 200 on the belt and 1,200 on the director of Carrion, a crushing loss of 2,000 gold coins. She screeches in fury, wishing she had listened to Director Clark from the very beginning, and swears that Zed will pay dearly. Meanwhile, Zed and Rio are forced to lay low while the city swarms with Carrion guards. Rio scouts the perimeter to see if the coast is clear, only to collide with Herna's thug. The thug tells them he was sent to retrieve them, warning them to board the carriage since nobody else will offer them escape. Once settled inside the vehicle, a worried Rio asks if they will survive. Zed admits it is obviously a trap, but he wants to finally settle the score with Herna. When they arrive, heavily armed guards await in ambush. Clark mockingly asks how Zed plans to escape this time, sneering at the rats who stole his Rio panics, completely lost, while Herna steps forward, telling Zed that if he had simply joined her, they would not be in this mess. Zed snaps back that he would never ally with her, choosing death over her offer. Clark then warns Zed that his journey ends today, ordering the guards to surround them. Zed tells Rio to stand back. Clark scoffs at his arrogance, facing him as a mere mage. Zed calmly fires back that their chances of survival are completely equal. In truth, at that exact second, Zed did possess a 50% shot at. Though Clark was a Season 5 Circuit Knight, Zed's chances of winning were high. Clark vows to wipe that arrogant smirk off his opponent's face, warning him he will unleash everything. Instantly, the knight charges head first, but Zed stands completely still. At that critical second, the boy grasps the sensation he has been chasing, awakening the sleeping beast. He activates his champion's will. Crimson light ignites his eyes, and a devastating blast detonates, leaving Rio absolutely terrified. As the thick smoke clears, Clark stands directly in front of his failed strike until a voice screams to look skyward. Zed hovers high above the ground, gazing down. Clark cannot comprehend how the boy obtained such monstrous strength. Silently, Zed unleashes a counterattack. Clark frantically attempts to block, but the devastating impact forces him backward, leaving him struggling desperately to maintain his footing. Reeling from the strike, Clark cannot understand how the boy wields lightning. It is the ultimate element, capable of completely bypassing basic magic defenses, a power even the supreme Arahan leader coveted. Even his family line couldn't master it, leaving the onlookers completely blown away by what they're seeing. Clark sneers, claiming Zed relies far too much on his bloodline, calling it a massive mistake. He unleashes a brutal horizontal slash, but Zed slips past easily. Clark immediately follows up with a vertical swing, which Zed evades without breaking a sweat. Clark gears up for another heavy blow, but Zed lunges. Clark tries to strike, only to slam directly into a crackling lightning shield. This gives Zed the perfect chance to close the distance. He lands a direct hit, leaving the director utterly stunned. The fierce duel drags on. Clark desperately tries to land a hit, but Zed evades every single attack until he spots a gap in the director's guard. Zed lands a brutal punch. Clark is utterly baffled as to why a mage is throwing punches, since the golden rule of this world has always been that mages keep their distance from knights. Since Zed is fighting hand-to-hand, Clark realizes he can't treat him like a normal mage. He needs to put some distance between them, but Zed instantly closes the gap. Clark searches desperately for an opening but finds none. Taking another hit instead, Zed connects with a devastating strike on the director, who fails to defend himself. The sheer force of the blow sends Clark flying back, crashing straight into a nearby mountain. From the rubble, Clark watches Zed approach him. Once the mage gets close, Clark mutters he expected nothing less from the Arahan family, telling Zed to just finish it. Zed asks if he wants to know why he lost. Clark refuses, but Zed ignores him, stating the director lost because he never trained as hard as him. Hearing this makes Clark furious. He snaps, saying it's impossible for a privileged Arahan to have actually worked hard, blaming elites like Zed for ruining his life. Zed fires back, pointing out that he's actually weaker than the director, and that Clark would have easily won with more experience. However, the director's own inferiority complex blinded him from growing, making him the sole architect of his own defeat. Clark refuses to listen, telling Zed to just end it. Zed hesitates, realizing that if he executes the director, the whole empire will place a massive bounty on his head. Distracted, his skill deactivates and his power fades away. Right then, Hera screams, ordering everyone to attack. Zed realizes facing an army of guards is going to be a major headache. Suddenly, a violent gale sweeps in, completely blocking his vision. He tries squinting through the chaos. As the storm dies down, he's shocked by the sight. Everyone around him has mysteriously dropped dead. Zed wonders who could have done this, quickly realizing someone intends to frame him for this massacre. Panicked, he starts shouting and searching frantically for Rio. When he finally spots her, he lets out a huge sigh of relief. Rio asks if he caused this bloody carnage, but Zed tells her no. He explains a high-tier mage nearby must have executed the attack and warns her they need to escape this place right now. Just then, Rio spots a strange paper on the ground, calling Zed over to show him something is wrong. Meanwhile, a mysterious figure watches them from afar. Later, in a safe haven, Zed realizes the paper is a magic scroll and injects his Mana, the glowing symbol that appears, belongs to Arahan's own secret organization. Loyal soldiers who swore their lives to the family, working directly for the boss. On the back of that note, Zed spots the number 4. He remembers that 1 means acceptance, 2 is rejection, 3 is negotiation, and 4 stands for protection. It hit him. The Arahan family is trying to shield him because he awakened his mana. He also notices his power surged from level 1 to level 2 after beating Clark, proving this world runs just like the game. Rio snaps him out of it, asking what their next move is. Zed tells her they are heading to the city where his sister vanished, but Rio warns him that before they even arrive, the Empire will put a bounty on his head. Traveling on foot would be suicide. Hearing this, Zed decides they must change course and head for Tamya instead. Over in Tamya, a man arrives with his crew. They are there to hunt down in Arahan. Bahul, who is Jin Ho's old character back on Earth, declares he is here to execute a dishonored Arahan. In a sudden flashback, Bahul kneels before the king to receive a new mission. An imprisoned Arahan has broken out of the facility, murdering the director in charge. The king trusts only Bahul, the Empire's true heir. To handle this, Bahul swears on his life to carry out the execution. Back in the present, Rio calls their little plan pure madness. Only an idiot would march straight through a monster-infested forest, the territories surrounding the Empire serve as defense zones against demonic beasts managed by different families. The southern region they are heading toward is guarded by the Bahul family. They are heading to Tamya just to use a teleportation gate. But the toll is so high even wealthy nobles avoid it. Rio warns Zed he will only take her seriously once they run face first into a monster. Later, Zed tells Rio to eat up, saying, "You never know when death might come knocking." Suddenly, a violent tremor shakes the ground. Zed quickly pulls them both into hiding, keeping watch from the brush. Rio whispers, asking if a monster is coming, but Zed knows the heavy vibrations feel different. When he spots horses with glowing blue eyes, he realizes it is the Bahul Knights. Even from afar, he counts over 50 of them, praying they will just ride past. But then, a knight shouts that he found traces of a campfire. With 50 enemies, they are running out of time. Rio panics and tells Zed to run, sure the knights will kill him but spare her. Yet looking at her, Zed notices she is trembling with fear, clearly not believing her own words. He tells her not to worry, he has a crazy plan that might actually work. Zed steps out to test out Ahan's protection. After all, it was only a matter of time before they discovered his location anyway, and he was risking death either way. He introduces himself to the knights. Instantly, one of them attacks, but Zed dodges the strike easily. As another knight charges, Zed notices an invisible barrier shielding him from harm. Suddenly, a deep voice orders the attacker to stand down. The knight halts, demanding to know who spoke. Zed is stunned that the Arahan organization is watching him this closely. Even with his perception stat maxed out, he sensed absolutely nothing. The hooded man orders the knights to retreat, promising they will not be harmed if they leave. Just then, another warrior steps up to challenge the Arahan guardian. The hooded figure recognizes him instantly as Tor's Bahul. Seeing Tor's feels weirdly familiar to Zed, since Tor's was his main character in his past life. Tor's locks his eyes on Zed, but the Arahan servant cuts him off and demands the knight get out. The blonde swordsman Tor's claims he knows of Arahan's secret organizations. He readies his blade, claiming the servant is begging for a fight despite knowing his status. Instantly, the hooded mage unleashes a massive spell. Zed stares in shock at the magic circle, realizing that anyone attacking inside it will perish. This servant must be at least a 7th circle mage. Tor's demands to know if Arahan wants war with the Bahul family. The servant replies they do not want to fight and asks them to go once more. This only infuriates Tor's, who takes the request to retreat as a direct insult. Watching from afar, Zed realizes Tor's is going to die if this continues. It is a battle he cannot win, so Zed steps in and begs the servant to call off the attack. The hooded figure refuses, stating he only takes orders from the former lord, whose command was to protect Zed, not listen to him. Zed tries again, warning of the consequences of killing Tor's, and yells at the Bahul knight to halt his strike, but Tor's ignores him, declaring that Zed must pay for his crimes. Zed tries to explain it is all a misunderstanding, but it is useless. Tor's will not listen. Tor's charges at Zed, who stands his ground. the strike explodes violently against the shield. Zed realizes the mage protected him, and he is surprised Tors actually managed to pierce a 7th circle barrier. However, he notices Tors' technique is flawed, causing him to suffer a severe mana backlash. Because he could not complete it, Zed warns him not to use unfinished secret techniques. Tors gasps, asking how he knows that, then immediately collapses, sending his guards rushing to his side. Zed warns the soldiers that Tors is suffering from mana backlash, instructing them on how to treat it, but to stabilize someone's mana circuits, one needs stronger power than the injured person, and the only one capable of that here is Black Mirror. The mage cannot believe his ears, demanding to know if Zed expects him to save an enemy. Zed explains that Tors is an old friend, and if he dies, Arahan faces total war. Black Mirror argues that Tors' death would actually benefit Arahan since he brought this on himself, and saving him is not his mission. Zed disagrees, arguing that since he caused this mess, it is part of the mission. He warns Black Mirror that if he lets Tors die, his assignment to protect him ends right here. Zed reminds the mage that he always keeps his word, and the mage should know that. Black Mirror warns that the Lord will be furious, but Zed does not back down, demanding he heal the knight. The mage finally complies, and Zed tells the guards to step back. Since Black Mirror is the only one with superior circuits, he successfully stabilizes and heals Tors. Shortly after, Zed notices Black Mirror has vanished, leaving behind another card with coordinates. The number on the card has changed to a 9, which stands for abandonment. Elsewhere in Tamia, Rio. She asks if the squad that saved them were actually from the Black Mirror unit. Curious about the new card, Zed explains the situation and asks how she even knows about them. Rio replies that they are legendary. Even kids know them, and she warns him they must tread carefully because everyone is watching them. Zed points out that if things were reversed, he would already be dead. He explains that while knights prioritize honor above all, mages are the exact opposite, caring only about profit. Right then, a guard arrives to announce that the heir wants to speak with him. Inside the tent, over a cup of tea, Zed asks Tors how he is holding up. Tors says he feels better, and Zed tells him to drop the formalities, asking how old he is. Tors says he is 17. Zed mentions he is actually the youngest person there at 15. Watching them, Rio wonders if she will ever see members of Bahul and Ahin sitting down to chat peacefully. Suddenly, Tors thanks Zed for saving his life, which catches Zed completely off guard. He never expected a Bahul to thank a mage. Tors gets straight to the point about the director's death, demanding to know what really happened. Zed spends the next few minutes explaining the entire situation. After hearing the story, Tors admits it sounds like self-defense, but asks if it is actually the truth. Zed points out that if he were lying, he would have let Tors die instead of risking everything to save him. Realizing Zed is right, the knight apologizes, asking him to accept a gift as a peace offering. Instead, Zed asks if he can request a favor, and Tors agrees. Zed asks him to locate Rio's missing brother. Tors points out that this does not benefit Zed, but he replies that he does not care. The next morning, Rio wonders why anyone would waste such a valuable favor on a complete stranger, while Zed tells her breakfast is coming soon. Tors notices Zed sweating and realizes it is because he has no mana. He is amazed that Zed has not given up despite his condition, doubting he would have the strength to keep going if he were in those shoes. His admiration for Zed grows, and he decides he wants to become his friend. Later, everyone gathers to eat, and Rio is stunned by the massive spread of food. Tors says it is the least he can do for an Arahan, urging everyone to dig in since the food is not just for show. Zed watches from a distance, noticing that the table has no assigned seating based on rank. He believes this is exactly why he respects Tors so much. Rio asks if it is safe to eat, fearing the food might be poisoned. Zed assures her it is fine, though deep down, he is also suspicious about why Tors is offering them such an expensive meal. Suddenly, one of the men stands up and excuses himself. Soon, the rest of the group leaves as well, unable to stand being in the same room as an Arahan. Once they are gone, Tors apologizes for their behavior. Zed tells him not to worry, explaining that people are raised to see mages as enemies, making their reaction only natural. He adds that Tors' job as a leader is to guide them, not punish them. Hearing this, Tors thanks him for another valuable lesson. Wanting to lighten the mood, Zed asks what he is hiding. Tors asks if they can delay the search for Rio's brother by just one day, explaining that he wants to earn his men's respect. First, a single day should be plenty of time. Zed checks in with Rio and she gives her approval. Later, on the battlefield, a knight slays a weak monster. Tors praises the soldier for a job well done, ordering everyone forward. Meanwhile, Zed questions why he was even brought along, given the frontline vanguard Tors established to patrol an area crawling with dangerous monsters, but as we will soon see, it suddenly clicks. Tors wants to host a massive celebration afterward, making it the ideal chance to welcome Zed into the unit. The young mage realizes it is an incredibly clever move for a 17-year-old leader. Suddenly, a guard calls out to Tors, pointing to a set of strange tracks. The commander asks if anyone recognizes the beast that left them. A knight immediately suggests that they should retreat and follow protocol, given they are facing an unknown, dangerous threat, but Tors shrugs it off, noting they are still in the safe first sector, meaning there is absolutely nothing to fear in such a secure zone. But Zed steps up to offer help, shocking Tors with his knowledge of the footprints. Zed explains they belong to a basilis, which is just a mid-tier beast, and fairly easy to deal with. The guards instantly warn Tors to ignore a foreign mage who does not even belong here, but Zed snaps right back, saying this monster is not exclusive to this place, and that Arahan likely has far superior data on it than the Bahal do. This completely infuriates the guards, who order him to stop mocking them. Finally losing his temper, Zed retorts that they are only embarrassing themselves by showing such blatant disrespect to the heir of Arahan. Tors steps in and barks for silence. He begins to apologize to Zed for the disrespect, but a sudden ambush from the monster cuts him off. Tors instantly orders everyone into battle formation, telling his troops to spread out and encircle the beast. The creature leaps straight at Tors, but he easily evades its claws, yet the split second he turns to speak with Zed, another monster strikes. He ducks again, realizing they are dealing with a pair of these creatures. Tors and his knights coordinate a massive blow to end this, but their strike fails to leave even a single scratch. Tors is baffled, but Zed already knows these beasts are completely immune to fifth circle magic. Honestly, even a ninth circle spell would fail to pierce them, right? Then the beast prepares a deadly counterattack. Spotting this, Zed yells for everyone to hit the dirt, and Tors quickly echoes the command. Nearly every soldier drops except for one arrogant guard who ignores the outsider's warning. Zed calls him a fool and barks at him to get down. The beast unleashes a barrage of sharp spikes, leaving everyone who listened to the warning completely safe. Tors is utterly shocked. Zed had to physically tackle the stubborn soldier to the earth himself, or the idiot would have been instantly killed. Dusting himself off, Zed stands up and tells Tors to leave one of the monsters to him, while the knights focus on the other. Tors asks if he can truly handle a beast all alone. Zed snaps that there is no time to argue and to just trust him, which Tors quickly accepts. Zed silently notes that even in a tense, life or death crisis, the commander still worries about his safety, making him respect the leader even further. As Tors and his men charge into the fray, Zed mutters that he is not the only one about to get serious, channeling his lightning. Once again, he grabs the beast's attention and charges straight toward it. Without losing a single second, Zed closes the distance, realizing that stumbling onto a basilisk right after a hunt is unbelievably lucky. He braces for the impact, aiming directly for the monster's head, but just then the beast suddenly collapses dead. Zed was secretly hoping for a demon's breath drop, so he is thrilled when the rare elixir crafting material actually drops. Without waiting, he rushes over to help the knights with the other beast. The battle was proving brutal even for Tors, when suddenly a massive bolt of lightning strikes the creature. Tors has no clue where it came from, but then Zed strolls up and asks if he is okay. Tors yells in shock when he sees him. Soon, the other knights also realize they just witnessed legendary lightning magic. Tors demands to know if that really is the elemental power, since he thought Zed had no mana. Zed explains he only recently awakened his abilities. Normally, a mana ring forms around the heart at birth or at the very latest by age 6. Tors is stunned that Zed's rings are only now forming at age 15, thinking that even the gods must have been moved by the boy's incredible willpower. Zed snaps him back to reality, asking if he can have the other basilisk's core. Tors agrees since Zed killed the beast. Zed silently notes that in his 10 years of playing the game, He has never managed to score 2 of these cores in one day, back at camp. Zed's newfound strength is the only topic on everyone's mind. Many wonder how. A magicless boy awakened the legendary Kai of Enlightenment, while others regret missing out on the hunt. At the victory banquet, a soldier thanks Zed for saving his life. Zed shrugs it off, saying it was nothing, just glad that everyone is safe. Watching this unfold, Rio asks Zed what he actually did out there. To get the whole camp talking, Zed explains that winning their favor is going to be highly useful when they begin searching for Rio's missing sister. Across the hall, Tors calls out to him, praising his incredible work and promising that his men will do everything to find Rio's sister. Zed thanks him, and Tors mentions he must return home the following day. He explains the master is completely shocked by the news and is bracing himself for a massive scolding, but promises to join the search party. The second he leaves the estate, Zed turns to Rio, reassuring him that Tors Bahal is on their side. Overcome with relief, Rio tears up and thanks them both. The next morning, Rio reveals his sister's name is Lisa. She is nearly 13 years old with long, waist-length blonde hair. When Zed asks if that is all the info they have, Rio adds that she is incredibly cute. Zed shares these descriptions with the soldiers, ordering the knights to search everywhere, even pressuring the local slave traders. He then asks Rio where the market where he used to work is located. Upon arrival, Zed goes in alone to avoid any unwanted attention. Rio notes that he looks like a true nobleman. The moment Zed steps inside, a merchant immediately greets him, asking how he can assist. Zed asks if this is indeed the Hamel company. The merchant shakes his head, explaining that this shop is actually a slave market. Zed smugly points out that the man literally just asked him what kind of merchandise he wanted. Right then, the merchant's attitude flips, accusing Zed of only pretending to be a noble, but Zed fires back, warning him that he's making a massive mistake because he actually is one. The trader argues that to a real aristocrat, slaves are mere property, adding that true nobles never travel without an escort. Then the trader asks if DeVito sent him, but Zed just mocks him, asking if he is actually clever or just acting stupid, all while secretly wondering who this DeVito guy even is. The merchant, completely blind to the danger he is in, tries to make a threat. Zed instantly strikes him, warning him that if he just cooperates and answers, he won't get beaten up anymore. Zed slaps him again to wake him, demanding to know what happened to the previous owner of the building, who this DeVito is, and where everyone else is. The merchant asks if he means the products. Hearing that offensive word, Zed slaps him across the face again, daring him to say it one more time. Every time the trader tries to speak, he gets another hard slap. Zed reminds him that these captives are human beings and shouldn't be treated like mere objects. He tells the man to show some basic decency and reveal where everyone is hidden. Terrified, the merchant quickly unlocks a door, but when Zed steps inside, he is absolutely horrified by what he sees. Staring at the room, Zed wonders how anyone could lock up so many people in such terrible conditions. He asks if there's anyone else, and the merchant says no. Looking around, Zed notices there are no blonde or young captives, making him realize that Lisa must have already been sold. Zed warns the merchant that he's going to teach him one final lesson before he leaves. He orders him to hand over the keys to every single room and all the money from the safe. Shortly after, Zed locks the merchant inside, telling him he deserves to experience the exact nightmare he inflicted on those innocent people. Later, at another location, Zed distributes the money equally among the rescued slaves. The local knights help them find a decent place to stay, and while everyone is eating, Zed listens to their stories. An elderly man shares that he used to be a butler, but after his master's family went bankrupt, he ended up being sold into slavery. Zed is stunned to learn the man once served the famous Chervil family, considering they were supposedly wiped out completely. The Chervil family was renowned for producing legendary blacksmiths, much like the Arahan family is known for their incredible mages. But they met a tragic end after betraying the empire, and today their name is barely ever mentioned. Since no heir survived, it was a massive loss for the empire, which is constantly battling vicious beasts. Zed laments the end of the Chervil bloodline. The old man then asks him to keep a secret and suggests they speak somewhere more private. Once they are alone, the old man reveals that the Chervil heir is actually alive. Zed immediately asks where he is. The Old man explains that the heir and the former head of the family swapped clothes, tricking everyone into believing the lifeless body they found belonged to the young master. If everything went according to plan, he should be hiding in Mayer's right now. Zed never expected to hear something like this, but he realizes that since the heir is a fugitive, finding him will be next to impossible. Still, he thanks the old man for the information, hoping their paths are bound to cross eventually. He suggests heading back inside, noting that lingering outside might raise suspicion. Once back indoors, Rio just picks at her plate. Zed asks why she isn't eating and tells her to stop blaming herself for today's mess. He explains that the slave trader they faced was only the beginning, promising they will search for more leads on DeVito tomorrow. Hearing this, the old man interrupts, asking if Zed just said DeVito. Terrified, the elder begs Zed not to hunt that man. Zed just shrugs, claiming he has Bahal's forces backing him, but the old man persists, warning him that DeVito has deep ties across the empire, and his primary buyer is in Arahan. Zed scoffs, arguing that no Arahan would ever come all the way to the south, but the old man explains that one rival's loss is another's victory. They are stealing all the southern slaves simply to strike at the Bahal family. Seeing this angle, Zed admits the theory actually holds weight. He begins to wonder if the Black Mirror Core is shielding DeVito, because if so, it could trigger a shadow war between the Arahans and the Bahals. Suddenly, Rio pulls Zed from his thoughts and he instantly catches her worried expression. He tells her to stop worrying, promising her that though he is fighting to protect her, he also simply wants to do what is right. He is merely following his own path. Either way, DeVito must be stopped. The following morning at DeVito's slave market, a guard greets Zed. Moments later, Zed kicks open the main hall doors, demanding DeVito is hiding. A thug sneers, dismissing him as another arrogant noble. Zed mutters that serving the Arahan family truly corrupted them, right before revealing his real identity. Instantly, the thugs hit the ground, begging for mercy. But one kneeling man catches Zed's attention. He asks if that is DeVito, even though he is disguised in a cheap thug's clothes. Suddenly, an echoing voice calls from above. The speaker asks what brings such an elite guest there, mentioning he heard Zed recently wrecked one of his operations. He sneers, saying he never expected Zed would possess the courage to walk right in. Zed gets right to business. He announces that effective immediately, Arahan is cutting all ties with DeVito and orders the immediate release of every slave. Hearing this, DeVito erupts into laughter. Zed delivers a threat, but DeVito only mocks him, asking if Zed really intends to kill him. DeVito declares that talk is over. He will spare Zed's life out of respect for nobility, but he plans to teach him an unforgettable lesson. Zed quickly assesses the room. He calculates the only Black Mirror agent present must be that hooded figure. If his opponent has 5 mana circuits or fewer, he stands a real chance of victory. Suddenly, a familiar voice echoes. Following a massive blast, Tors crashes into the room to assist, catching Zed completely by surprise. Tors bellows that by the Emperor's decree they are authorized to execute all hostiles without mercy. DeVito panics at this sudden interference, diving to the floor to evade a deadly strike. Something crashes down right beside him, and he leaps up in pure terror upon recognizing his deceased ally. Tors barks that DeVito is under arrest for abduction and defiling Bahal's reputation, announcing his immediate penalty will cost him a limb. DeVito screams for mercy, but it is futile. Tors severs his arm. A second later, DeVito's remaining arm is sent flying through the air. He continues pleading, but Tors lands one final blow, ending the man. Zed thanks him for the timely rescue and asks how he arrived. Tors explains that the Emperor just issued a new imperial decree. When Zed asks if they already handled the other slave traders, Tors explains he sent other squads but handled this raid personally because it was the most critical. He then asks if Zed planned to take down DeVito all alone. Zed confirms he was, and Tors warns him not to push his luck by fighting alone, especially right after unlocking his mana. As Tors talks, Zed realizes just how lucky he got. The blame for this would fall on Bahal instead of him, forcing Arahan to make a move soon. Staring at the hooded man unconscious on the ground, Zed wonders why he refused to fight, whether out of loyalty to Arahan or sheer reluctance. Just then a guard calls to Tors, reporting they have rounded up all the prisoners. They were ordinary people kidnapped and forced into labor. Scanning the crowd, Tors orders his men to gather every blonde girl they Confined, right then, Rio spots a girl with yellow hair and calls. His sister's name Lisa, but drawing closer, he realizes he was mistaken. Zed fears she might have already been sold, since young girls are highly sought after. In this dark trade, trying to keep Rio's spirits up, Zed tells him not to give up. A guard then reports that all the cells are finally empty and the last of the slaves are heading out. Outside, the guard mentions the king's decree to send the remaining captives to the castle, and Tors agrees. He thanks Rio and Zed for helping with the raid, wishing them luck in finding Rio's sister. Suddenly, a horse neighs, startling a young girl who trips and falls. Tors rushes over to help her, and as he asks if she is okay, he notices she has blonde hair. Zed quickly calls out, asking if she has seen a boy who looks like her. The girl turns around and calls out to Rio. Seeing this, Rio runs over and wraps Lisa in a massive hug, making everyone quite emotional. Zed points out they must have missed her because of her hood, but then he spots Tors weeping and starts teasing him. Tors asks how Zed can be so cold and feel absolutely nothing. Later, Tors tells everyone to eat and drink as much as they want. Lisa is stunned by the massive amount of food. Tors hands her a plate, urging her to eat, and she shyly thanks him. Tors tells her there is no need for formalities since he and Rio are friends. He then introduces Zed, saying that despite his cold attitude, he is actually a good guy. Zed cannot help but find the situation weird, thinking about how he is technically over 40 years old, yet here he is hanging out with a 15-year-old and his 13-year-old sister. Across the table, Rio helps his little sister, telling her she can eat as much as she wants since his friends are filthy rich. As the night goes on, the siblings' cheerful conversation brightens up the whole room. Watching them, Zed thinks to himself that this must be his most peaceful day since arriving in this world, but suddenly someone bursts through the door calling for Tors. Zed recognizes him instantly as the vice captain of the battle. Tors asks why he is there, and the man replies that he is there to enforce the Lord's new decree. He instantly draws his sword and points it directly at Zed. Zed sighs, realizing he can never catch a. Just then, the captain announces that the king has ordered them to bring Arahan in. Later, Zed sits inside a carriage as the captain begins to lay down the rules. He warns Zed never to look directly at the Lord and to drop to his knees the moment he sees him, but when the captain barks another order, Zed cuts him off, demanding to know who he thinks he is, bossing around an Arahan. The captain warns him that this is battle, not his home, and he could lose his head for any more disrespect. Yet, Zed refuses to back down for a second, demanding that the captain show him some respect instead. Arriving at the Grand Castle, Zed knows he must show some basic manners as the Arahan heir, or he is dead. He feels completely trapped. If he bows, they will think he is weak, but acting too confident will only anger the Lord. Once inside, Zed notices the hall looks exactly like the one from the game. Since there is no sign of the 7th floor, he assumes he was summoned as a guest, meaning things might not be so terrible. Suddenly, a deep voice speaks up. Noting he is the first Arahan to ever set foot in Bahal Castle, Zed looks for the source and realizes the Lord is standing right behind him. The heavy pressure radiating from the king is so overwhelming that Zed cannot even move. Is it aura, he wonders, but quickly realizes it is just the presence of the king of Bahal, since his own special trait makes him immune to normal aura anyway. This meant the monarch was beyond the 10th circle, a true master swordsman. The king sits down and stares at him in silence. He praises Zed's boldness but warns him to keep his manners in check under Bahal rules. Zed thinks fast, knowing he cannot show weakness by kneeling, or they will never take him seriously. Instead, he decides to thank the king for the invitation. The Lord finds his choice of words quite strange, so Zed explains that being escorted by guards in a carriage is how a guest is treated. He adds that since he is in Bahal, he will follow local customs and bow to him. Surprised by his boldness, the king offers him a seat and invites him to have some coffee. Zed can barely believe his daring plan actually worked. The king quickly snaps him out of his thoughts, revealing he only called him there out of pure curiosity. The Lord asks if he went after DeVito because of the royal decree, but Zed shakes his head. He acted on his own because human trafficking goes against his principles. Zed decides to tell the truth, knowing it is impossible to lie to a master swordsman. The king asks if he knew about DeVito's deep connections to his family. Zed confirms he had heard the rumors, but became absolutely certain the moment he saw DeVito in person. The king warns him that House Arahan won't let this slide and will punish him, but Zed declares he is ready for the consequences and has zero regrets. Lord is impressed that Zed acted knowing full well he was opposing his own family and that stepping into the castle put him in even greater danger. The king concludes that Tors was right to call him an honorable mage, inviting him to stay the night and join him for breakfast the next morning. Zed stands up, offering a knight's salute in thanks. The king comments that he never expected to see a mage salute him like that. Later, inside the guest room, Zed feels completely drained from the intense meeting. He realizes being honest was his best move. If the Lord was anything like his in-game version, Zed's head would have rolled, his stomach rumbles, and soon a massive feast is served while a servant politely wishes him a good meal from the doorway, but panic sets in when Zed notices something. It's another card from the Black Mirror Corps. Terrified, he rushes out to find any members of the group, but there's no one. Back in his room, he channels mana into the card to reveal the message. A new number appears, signaling either a return or an aborted mission. This could only have come from the head of House Arahan. The next day, Zad is reeling, wondering just how far Arahan's reach actually goes. A sudden voice snaps him out of his thoughts. Opening the door, he finds himself face to face with Tors. Walking down the hallway, Tors asks if the Lord actually invited Zad to breakfast. He assures the boy he's safe now, but Zad has his doubts. Tors explains that the patriarch already knows what kind of person Zad really is. Everything is fine, and the Lord even wants to lift the bounty on his head. Zad plays dumb, asking about the bounty privately. He knows his life would be perfect right now if Arahan wasn't summoning him back. He realizes there's no escaping Arahan no matter where he goes. After breakfast, Tors takes him on a tour of the estate, ending at the knight's training grounds. He mentions this is a special place, asking if Zad knows that the white horses of Bahal choose their own riders. The ones standing before them don't have owners yet. Zad asks why there's only one horse there. Tors explains that the beast has rejected every single candidate. They try to find him a rider every 3 months, but this horse has held out for 2 years, even rejecting the patriarch himself. Zad wonders how that's even possible, since these beasts are supposed to choose the strongest riders. Tors explains that isn't always how it works. This stallion is an exception. He asks if the Bahal horses caught Zad's eye, and Zad nods. Tors boasts that they're the most beautiful horses in the world, and there is a reason they call them divine beasts. Zad walks up to the horse, looks it in the eye, and gently places his hand on its flank. Suddenly, someone interrupts. It's the vice captain of the Bahal Knights. He claims he just came to say hello, but immediately starts mocking Zad for his association with Arahan. Tors steps in, demanding respect since Zad is a guest of the patriarch. The vice captain apologizes, then turns to Zad, challenging him to a friendly spar. Tors questions his attitude, reminding him once again that Zad is a guest. The vice captain promises it will be a clean duel, but Tors insists Zad isn't ready, as the man keeps pushing. During the argument, Zad cuts in and accepts. He tells the vice captain that if he wants a fight, he's got one. Down in the arena, the vice captain announces he'll only use a wooden sword. Zad warns him he shouldn't do that, warning him he will regret it. Watching from the sidelines, Tors wonders what Zad is thinking, accepting a physical duel when he's actually a mage. Back in the arena, the vice captain asks if Zad really thinks he can win. Zad replies he's about 50% sure of his victory. His opponent calls him optimistic, but Zad fires back, saying he hopes the vice captain can survive at least a few hits. The vice captain notices Zad's highly rumored energy, commenting that while it's a terrifying power, it's no real threat. With Zad's mana not even reaching 2 circuits, everyone expects a quick end. The match begins, and both fighters charge headfirst at one another. Watching Zad rush forward, the vice captain wonders why a mage is closing the distance instead of staying back. He decides to play nice, knowing he cannot kill a guest, but suddenly his sword is slammed to the dirt and Zad flashes right beside him, demanding he give it his all before unleashing a counter that sends him flying. The captain is horrified to find his blade shattered. Before he can recover, Zad charges ahead. The captain tries to swing back, but his efforts are useless. As Zad slips every single strike, Zad lands a clean hit, then strikes him square in the jaw, sending him flying again. The crowd is in Absolute disbelief at this crazy show of power. Meanwhile, a horse watches. Intently, with the vice captain knocked flat, the other knights panic and yell for a healer. Right then, another angry warrior steps up to challenge Zad. Tors tries to stop it, arguing the duel is over and there is absolutely no need for this, but the knight tells Tors to move. Zad accepts the challenge and flattens this guy too, as his victories stack up. A line of knights steps forward, seeing this endless queue of challengers. Zad remarks that knowing when to yield is part of a knight's code of conduct. The warriors are furious to hear a mage lecturing them on honor, claiming he doesn't know a thing about chivalry. Zad simply points out that he met their challenge right inside Bahul Castle, yet they're still playing dumb and refusing to accept their loss. Right at that moment, the patriarch arrives. Everyone freezes instantly as he commands the men to sheathe their weapons. Zad is shocked, even with his perception stat at level 100. He felt absolutely nothing. This is the sign of a genuine master. Staring at Zad, the patriarch remarks that he never expected to find an Arahan on his training grounds, calling it a historic moment. Zad apologizes, explaining he couldn't turn down a challenge. The Lord then uses this defeat to lecture his men about their lazy training. He warns them that while climbing the ranks is indeed important, they must build real combat experience and never underestimate an opponent. The patriarch then thanks Zad for teaching his troops a valuable lesson. He won't forget this. Hearing this, Zad realizes this lord is incredibly sharp. He is basically walking on thin ice here. Suddenly, a massive figure charges straight at Zad. It's the majestic white horse from earlier. Tors can't believe his eyes. Zad asks what is going on. Tors explains it is a selection ritual. When a beast finds its rider, it runs to prove its strength, meaning it has finally accepted someone as master. The horse finishes its run and bows. Tors tells Zad the beast has chosen him. Still in shock, Zad asks if this animal is truly picking him. Watching from afar, the patriarch is pleased the creature finally found a master, but wonders why it chose an Arahan of all people. He yells out, asking if Zad will accept Jingu as his companion and stand by her side forever, still completely confused by the turn of watching these events. Zad asks what this is all about. The mayor approaches and asks Jingu if she wants him to say yes. She neighs in agreement. Zad turns back to the lord to announce he will accept Jingu as his companion. Instantly, one of the knights protests, arguing that it is unacceptable for an outsider to own a Bahul horse. The patriarch admits that until now, only Bahuls have ever ridden these white horses, and very few were ever chosen. The knight asks the lord if he forgot the terrible atrocities the Arahan family committed against them, arguing that such a rare beast should never be trusted to a mage. The patriarch cuts in, saying that is exactly why he made a promise to Zad, since the knight still refuses to trust him. The patriarch warns the vice captain that if Zad does not treat the horse well, he will personally take his life. The man tries to argue again, but the patriarch shuts him down, declaring the matter closed. Later, on his way back, Zad remarks on how incredibly fast Jingu is. A bit later, he meets up with Rio and Lisa. Rio teases him, joking that he actually made it back from Bahul territory alive and even managed to bring back one of their horses. Zad laughs and asks to talk. Once they are indoors, Zad fills Rio and Lisa in on everything. He mentions the instruction card left by Arahan and says he has no choice but to head there. Rio cuts in and asks to go with him. She reminds him of his own words that abandoning comrades is never an option. He tries to refuse, warning her that Arahan is unlike anything she has ever seen. Rio replies that she knows the dangers, which is exactly why he needs someone he can trust inside the clan. She adds that Lisa can handle the heavy lifting and that they would both be a huge help. Zad considers the offer. He had planned to say his goodbyes to Rio right here, but ultimately decides to accept, telling them they are all going to Ara together. A while later, Zad realizes he cannot head to Arahan without any backup. Right now, his only options are the last heir of the Baskerville blacksmith clan and the demonic breath he took from the basilisks during the hunt with the Bahuls. He also needs holy water to refine the breath into an elixir. To sort everything out before the trip, he decides he has to head to Mayor's first. His real concern now is whether Lord Arahan will actually wait for him somewhere else. Rio is shocked to hear that Zad plans to spend all their gold bars. She points out that 500 gold coins is a massive amount of money and asks how he could possibly spend that much. Zad explains that the elixir he is trying to make requires divine holy water, and the success rate depends entirely on its purity, since the purest water is also the most expensive. He decides to head to Mayor's, where there is a priest he actually trusts. Rio asks if he is really taking all the gold, leaving them completely broke. Zad confirms he is, joking that they will still have a few silver coins left. He then tells her he is heading out and tasks her with finding an old man named Larko who has white hair and only one eye, since there are plenty of old men who fit that description. He instructs her to gather all of them in one place by offering a cash reward. Rio thinks that will make things easy, but Zad disagrees. He explains that Lara is a fugitive, so this gathering is actually a trap to see who does not show up, the one who avoids the meeting is the exact person they will be tracking down. Zad warns her that since he would never use the name Larko, she has to investigate quietly. Meanwhile, Zad reflects on how he originally planned to spend that cash on magic tools. But the moment he discovered a Chervil was still alive, everything changed. Now he must use the money to brew his elixir first. Once that is finished, he will try to recruit Larko to supply him with those magic tools, using them to make up for his lack of mana. Elsewhere, Zad watches a man announce that the church will serve everyone on a first-come, first-served basis, completely ignoring social status. Wondering why the church is so crowded, he asks the person ahead of him what is happening. The guy says they are selling holy water for half price today. He glances at Zad, says he looks like a wealthy noble, and tells him to leave the line so the poor can get the water instead. Hearing those words, Zad realizes something is off. True holy water must be infused with divine energy and can only be crafted once a day. Since St. Johann ignored money, it made sense to sell it at half price, but Zad wonders how there could possibly be enough holy water for everyone when the supply is so limited. He decides something is definitely wrong. After waiting in line all day long, it is finally Zad's turn. The priest asks how many bottles he wants, and Zad remarks that it must be exhausting to act all day. The priest plays dumb, but Zad corners him, demanding to know where the real Yan of Mayors is. The imposter denies it, claiming he is the real Yan and calling Zad crazy. He tells Zad to beat it, pointing out the massive line behind him. Zad warns him he won't get away with this, but the fake priest just scoffs. He threatens Zad, telling him that if he wants to survive, he should keep his mouth shut and stop messing with his business. Later, Zad wonders why the fake priest did not even flinch when threatened with a report to the Imperial Army. He considers the possibility that the local troops are supporting this corruption. Since he has no proof, he must investigate it himself, remembering the fortress surrounding Mayors. Shortly after Zad arrives at the gates, the guards spot Bahel's white horse and ask what brings him there. He replies that he has a report to deliver to the general. When the soldiers ask if he has an appointment, Zad says no. He asks if the general is truly that busy, but the guard explains those are just the rules. Zad insists it is an important report, but the guard apologizes and sticks to protocol, saying he is just doing his job. Zad realizes he won't get anywhere with the guards, but he refuses to leave empty-handed. Just then, Zad spots a man walking over, instantly realizing it is the base general. The commander demands to know his identity and why he has a Bahel horse, since he clearly does not look like one of their soldiers. Zad replies that it was a gift. The general laughs, saying he has never heard of the Bahel family giving away horses as presents, and asks what noble house he is from. Zad replies that he has no noble lineage. He is just a familyless mage. General Pullman mocks Zad for claiming to be a mage who magically got a horse as a gift. He asks Zad if he has no shame telling such lies. Zad tries to explain that he just got lucky and it was a massive coincidence, but the general cuts him. He orders his men to arrest Zad, throw him in prison, and seize the white horse. Seeing this, Zad mutters that they really are working with the church. The general snaps back, telling him he should have kept his mouth shut. Before they drag him away, Zad warns Pullman that he will regret this. The general fires back, saying Zad is the one who will regret it soon. They promise to break every bone in his body. Meanwhile, at the Bahel estate, the patriarch reveals that the emperor has offered them a massive reward. Their family saved over 3,700 slaves, followed by the Arahan clan, who saved 2,800. The emperor always tries to keep the balance of power. He rarely encourages direct competition. Meanwhile, in the Grand Throne Room, the patriarch tells Tors to get dressed to receive his reward. He will accept it on behalf of the family, leaving Tors completely stunned. Suddenly, a guard reports that a young girl wishes to speak with the patriarch. The soldier tried to turn her away, but she claims to know Zad and Tors. Hearing this, Tors immediately asks if the girl's name is Rio. The guard confirms it, leaving Tors wondering why she would travel all this way. The patriarch tells the guard to bring her in, wondering what is happening. He figures Zad had a solid reason to send her, remembering their last conversation. She had something important to say. The moment Rio enters, she bows low. She greets Lord Bahul, and the patriarch gently asks why she has come. She explains that Zad instructed her to deliver a letter if he was late. By nightfall, he still was not back. The patriarch opens the letter. In it, Zad completely exposes the deep-seated corruption within the church. He specifically names the tainted holy water and the fake priest. Rio admits she was worried about Zad, which pushed her to deliver this. The patriarch praises her courage, calling her actions honorable and brave. She came all this way to help a friend, despite being absolutely terrified. Since it is late, he sends her to eat while he prepares a response. She is stunned that someone of her low standing received such high praise. She thinks to herself that nights like these truly are magical. In the cafeteria, she cries tears of joy because the food is amazing. It tastes far better than anything back home. Meanwhile, Zad is training hard. The guard watches in shock since the prisoner has been at it for 2 hours. Suddenly, the general arrives, complaining about the stench and demanding an update. The guard reports that Zad has been working out without a single break. Later, the general unties the prisoner, offering freedom in exchange for the truth. He demands to know if Zad cast some spell on that white horse. Zad denies it, explaining that the Bahul steeds choose their own masters. The general scoffs, refusing to believe a warhorse would ever choose a mage. Zad simply looks at him and says he will find out soon enough. The general snaps. He declares that the previous torture was far too light. Now he will handle things personally, boasting that no one lasts very long. No one survives 30 minutes with him, and he cannot wait to watch Zad beg. He warns him it is his last chance, but Zad only mocks him. Enraged, the general lunges to stab Zad in the leg, but someone intervenes. The guard interrupts him, announcing a letter has arrived from the Bahul Empire. Furious, the general hurls a knife at him, barking that he explicitly ordered no disturbances. But the trembling guard insists that the document is incredibly important. Opening the letter, the general is shocked to find himself accused of illegally imprisoning a friend of Bahul and an heir of the Arahan family. It demands he step down immediately and submit to a thorough investigation, warning of severe consequences if he fails to comply. Seething with rage, the general tears the paper to shreds, convinced this is all Zad's doing, he claims. The Bahul patriarch has zero authority to interfere with an imperial general. But Zad mockingly calls him an idiot, saying, "Of course the patriarch can." The furious general fires back, claiming that if he simply kills Zad and the fake priest immediately, there will be no evidence pointing to him. Losing patience, Zad notes that people like the general only learn the hard way and prepares to fight. Suddenly, heavy chains materialize and bind the general. Looking up, Zad realizes these are soldiers from Bahul. They explain that the patriarch of Arahan ordered his immediate return, demanding Zad accompany them. Zad is left wondering why. They are suddenly dragging him away, but the messenger insists those are their orders. Zad argues that his work here is unfinished and he will return alone later. However, the man insists on an immediate return. Feeling cornered, Zad reminds him that returning to Arahan right now is essentially a death sentence, and that he absolutely must finalize his affairs here first. He asks them to deliver this message to the head of Arahan, and then the man instantly vanishes. Zad realizes he must prepare for a brutal interrogation once he finally returns. Moments later, the man reappears, delivering a message that the master has given him exactly 2 weeks to return. Zad's countdown officially begins. The henchman promises to deal with the disgraced general and the cathedral, noting that an official investigator is already on his way to the scene. He then offers a final warning. The master wants Zad to stop hiding the fact that he is an Arahan. Zad asks if he should ditch his contacts, and the messenger confirms he must. Once left alone, Zad mutters about how the man always vanishes right after dropping a massive bombshell. 2. Hours later, the investigator arrives to congratulate Zad on his swift actions. Inquiring about his family lineage, that is when Zad reveals his true identity, introducing himself as Zad Arahan, the seventh son of his noble bloodline. The investigator is stunned, calling it a massive shock to meet the legendary Arahan named in the decree. Hearing this, Zad is confused, wondering what decree he means. The investigator reveals that Zad was personally written into the end of the Emperor's official decree. He adds that he has wanted to meet Zad for a long time and is thrilled they finally met. Zad wonders how His Majesty could possibly know his name, but Cox, the investigator, explains that one of the people Zad saved told the king everything about his heroic deeds. Immediately, Zad realizes it was Gordon. Next, Zad asks the investigator for a favor, explaining that he wants to personally resolve the cathedral case. Cox grants him complete freedom to act. Zad warmly thanks him, which deeply surprises the investigator. Cox notes that Zad is the first Arahan to actually thank him in ages. He authorizes Zad to use the Imperial Army unit to wrap up the case, giving him green light to eliminate any targets if necessary, promising he will personally take the fall if things go sideways, as Zad offers his thanks again. Cox chuckles, calling Zad his favorite Arahan because of his polite manners. Shortly after, Zad stands alongside the Imperial soldiers right outside the Grand Cathedral. He barks out a warning, giving the scammers a count of 3 to walk out of the sanctuary. When no one moves, a guard asks if they should breach the doors, but another soldier quickly stops him, noting that drawing weapons or using mana inside a holy place is strictly outlawed. Zad tells them he will handle this solo and commands them to hold their positions since he is rushed. The troops whisper behind his back, wondering if they should intervene since he cannot cast magic inside the church. Right then, Cox steps forward and commands everyone to stand down and await Zad's return, reminding them he granted him complete command. The knights attempt to object, warning the commander he will be held liable if things go south inside. Cox simply sneers, firing back that they clearly know absolutely nothing about the notorious Arahan bloodline. He notes that an Arahan always delivers on their promise and never retreats, even when forced to do the absolute grimiest work imaginable, which is why the entire world dreads them. Stepping inside the temple, Zad confronts the thugs, reminding them of his promise to return. Meanwhile, Cox tells the crowd outside to keep their eyes glued. Soon, the soldiers notice an eerie silence, followed by a line of figures slowly shuffling out of the entrance. It is the fake priests, battered and bruised. Zad absolutely thrashed them. The troops stand frozen in disbelief, wondering how on Earth he wiped out an entire gang without using a single shred of magic. Cox praises Zad, calling this clean sweep a true Arahan feat. Zad bows and requests that these con artists face justice for peddling fake holy water. He then shouts back inside, signaling that the threat is gone. The true priest, Yan, emerges from the sanctuary, approaches the fallen thugs, and miraculously heals their wounds, begging them to seek redemption and follow the divine path. With the crisis settled, Johan introduces himself as an imperial priest and invites Zad inside for tea to express his gratitude. Zad agrees, but Cox stops him, first presenting a special token. It is an imperial badge granting immense authority wherever imperial soldiers are deployed. He tosses the emblem over, trusting the young man to wield it wisely. Cox cautions him to use its power strictly for the Empire, warning that abusing it for selfish desires would destroy their trust. Zad offers his gratitude, promising to never exploit the badge for personal gain. With that settled, the two part ways. Zad bows respectfully, hoping their paths cross again. Back inside the church, Yan thanks Zad for his help and offers him any reward he desires. Zad requests a supply of holy water. Befuddled, Yan questions the choice, noting that holy water is meant for healing the sick and cleansing evil. When pressed for details, Zad explains that he needs it to forge a magical artifact to save his life. The priest wonders how this item will protect him. Zad shares that as an Arahan born without the ability to use mana, he was banished, but now they are summoning him back, and he wonders if the priest gets it. Yan nods, knowing how ruthless family power struggles can be. He asks if a simple magical artifact can truly save Zad's life. Zad admits it won't solve all his problems, but it will certainly help him on the long journey ahead. Quietly, Zad calculates what the elixir will do. It should boost his stats by 2 points. To unleash his lightning, he needs 5 mana. Currently sitting at 3, those extra 2 points are going to be vital. Yan suddenly snaps Zad out of his deep thoughts. The priest mentions that he had already heard rumors of Zad fighting slave traders, believing it was fate. Gods will brought him to the city of mayors. Yan then reveals he has been saving some special holy water for years, waiting for someone who truly needs it. He spent decades concentrating his own divine energy directly into those bottles, creating the purest holy water in existence, and he hopes they help. Deeply moved, Zad offers his heartfelt thanks. Later, in a quiet room, Zad can barely believe his luck. He secured an item he always wanted. Back during his gamer days, the priest's legendary emblem in this world. This tiny crest carries massive authority. It acts as an indirect stamp of approval from the church and the empire alike. That means absolutely nobody can threaten his life without a valid reason, or they face the empire's wrath. This single item guarantees his safety in upcoming battles, Zad realizes. Yan was watching out for him when he gave him the crest. Now he holds tokens from both the empire and the church. This is the ideal moment to return home, since formidable enemies are waiting for him. Just holding these legendary treasures finally gives him real peace of mind. With that sorted, it is time to brew the potion. Zad remembers that with standard holy water, the success rate is only 20%, but this water is incredibly rare, meaning his odds are far better. He prays for success on the first attempt, though backups are ready if things go wrong. The alchemy begins. Initially, nothing happens, and dread creeps in, until the magical draft suddenly shines right in front of him. Stunned by his luck on the very first try, he downs the potion. Having 2 bottles left means he still has 2 more tries. If he pulls it off again, he will keep a spare bottle. Once more, Zad prays for good fortune. Right on cue, his theory is proven correct as another potion forms. He wonders what the real success rate is, realizing Yan must have spent ages purifying this sacred liquid. Next, Zad downs the second bottle and hits his ultimate goal of 5 mana points. Instantly, a new lightning skill unlocks. Overjoyed, Zad leaps in excitement. He feels all his lingering stress and anxiety melt away entirely. Thinking this reality beats playing a game any day. Later, Rio delivers her latest intel report. She found 40 men matching his exact description and paid them, but only 34 of those 40 showed up, meaning they must hunt down the 6 runaways. Zad asks if she has tracked them down yet. Rio nods, presenting their exact coordinates on a map. Zad offers his thanks for her excellent scouting. Rio boasts she can handle much tougher tasks if needed, but Zad immediately shuts that down, reminding her she has proven her. Zad acknowledges her intelligence, but makes it clear he will take over from here. He also warns her not to get emotional over the obvious, but their conversation is cut short when a woman approaches and asks if he is Zad Arahan. He confirms it and asks how she knows his name. She replies that everyone in Myers knows him. After he punished the scammers and saved the town, Zad suddenly realizes why everyone has been giving him those strange looks. Once the crowd realizes who he is, a massive crowd begins to swarm. Rio panics, wondering what they should do as people gather closer, thanking him. Caught in an awkward situation, Zad decides it is time to make a quick escape, but as they are making their exit, a familiar face catches his eye, a white-haired man with a distinct scar over his eye. It was Lacto Sherville. The moment Zad spots Lacto, he shouts at him to freeze, but he must fight through the dense crowd first. By the time he finally forces his way out, Lacto is gone. Rio catches up, asking if he found his target. Zad admits he spotted him, but the man slipped away. The pair immediately begin their hunt, with Rio guiding the search using a list of addresses. They soon arrive at the first location. Zad kicks the door open, but Lacto is not inside. He tries the next address but finds nothing. He storms into another home. Wrong target again. At last, they are down to their final option, inside the last house. Zad spots a trap rigged at the door. It makes perfect sense, since they are pursuing an imperial fugitive. He orders Rio to step back, feeling a sudden sense of dread. He is certain Lacto was here. As he opens the door, Zad quickly conjures a magical shield. Right on cue, a deadly blue fire trap erupts in a massive blast. Instantly, a passive trait triggers, granting him complete immunity to the explosion. Once the smoke clears, Rio rushes inside to see if he is all right. Zad ignores her, standing frozen in shock. The device was a modified bear trap, and he did not expect to find one. Hidden in the middle of a city, Zad curses, realizing the flames destroyed every potential clue. Fortunately, his new passive trait prevents him from dying too. Sudden fatal attacks, ensuring nobody can ever kill him with a single strike. He estimated the blast was a level 4 or 5 circuit, but since his survival trait was triggered, he realizes the trap was actually much stronger than he expected. Before long, the blame for the massive explosion falls entirely on them. Without any proof of a rigged magical trap, they become the prime suspects. A frantic Rio wonders what they should do, suggesting they ask the Bahal family or investigator Cox for help. Zad immediately rejects the idea, noting they have already relied on them too much. Moments later, the Imperial Army arrives, demanding Zad show himself. He prepares to go down and face them. Outside, the general introduces himself as Madden, ordering Zad to surrender immediately. But then he notices the cathedral crest given to Zad by Yan. Shocked, Madden asks if that is truly the high priest's mark. Zad confirms it is. The general immediately apologizes for his blunt tone and formally introduces himself as the new commander of mayors. He explains a massive explosion occurred, with Zad's name heavily linked to the blast. Zad admits he was there but explains he was actually one of the victims. Intrigued, the general asks what he was doing there. At first, noting Zad is not obligated to answer, but Zad says he does not mind sharing, explaining he was hunting for someone and accidentally walked into a trap. Hearing this, the general nods in understanding. Zad then asks if they can assist with his search, but Madden flatly refuses, stating the Imperial Army cannot get involved in personal matters. But then Zad flashes his Imperial badge, leaving the entire room completely stunned. The general instantly changes his tune, agreeing to assist because Imperial law demands they obey whoever carries the badge. The soldiers line up, waiting for orders. Zad briefs them on the runaway fugitive and the guards listen closely. Watching from above, Rio gets goosebumps, thinking to herself that Zad is absolutely terrifying. The next day, wanted posters are plastered all over the city, offering a 5,000 gold coin bounty, disguised. In the crowd, Lacto stares at a poster, wondering how far Zad will go to track him down. The drawing on the poster was actually made wrong on purpose. Lacto wonders why Zad is so desperate to find him, realizing he will only get answers if they speak face to face. He wonders when this chase will finally end. He has lost count of the cities he has fled, utterly exhausted from living in the shadows. He even begins to think that maybe it is his time to go, having lived long enough. But at that exact moment, Zad appears right behind him, whispering for him to act natural. Lacto asks who he is, and Zad introduces himself, telling Lacto to follow. Once they reach a more private spot, Zad introduces himself formally. He tells Lacto there is no need for introductions since he already knows his identity. Lacto asks why he is tracking him, and Zad replies that the reason someone would seek a legendary blacksmith is quite obvious. He explains he is on a mission to recruit Lacto is the exclusive craftsman for Arahan. Zad knows that while items are usually meant to boost attack speed, one also has to consider factors like weight, since heavy equipment is practically useless. That is exactly why he wants to recruit Lacto. The master blacksmith could create the perfect gear that would never hold him back in battle. He needs Lacto as an ally, so Zad asks the old man to join him and keep his legacy alive by having the world's premier craftsman work with the world's greatest family. Lacto would be able to pass his techniques down to future generations, keeping his bloodline from dying out. Hearing this, Lacto points out it is a bold offer, but his family is already doomed. Zad assures him that Arahan will help clear the Chervil family name of the false accusations. Lacto interrupts, asking if Zad has any idea what actually caused the Chervil incident. Zad admits he does not know for sure. The blacksmith questions how Zad plans to help without even knowing what happened. In truth, Zad only knows the story from the few details he gathered from the game's characters, since official records simply labeled them as traitors who rebelled. Zad argues that even if he does not everything, he knows the Chervil family was powerful and honest. Since their sole goal was to create magic tools, they had no reason to rebel. Rebellion made even less sense, considering the Emperor had achieved both the Supreme Master and Arcane realms, making him an immortal Supreme. Any being below him stood only the Imperial army of mages and knights, and not even The combined might of Bahul and Arahan could defeat him. Because of that, Chervil rebellion seemed completely illogical. Zad presses the blacksmith to reveal the truth, and Lacto prepares to explain. He begins by asking Zad if he knows the Martin family, which Zad confirms, noting they are the second-ranked family of mages. The old man nods, adding that the Martin family always dreamed of surpassing Arahan. Zad remarks that is impossible. Lacto then reveals the true tragedy started when the Billy clan entered the picture. Zad recalls how the Billy family suddenly gained power, quickly becoming rivals to the Martins, and asks what happened next. Lacto explains that the panicked Martin family framed him, even though they were his main client. They betrayed and sabotaged him, marking the beginning of the end for the Chervil lineage. Sadly, he was never even given a chance to explain himself. Hearing this, Zad wonders if Arahan had truly played no part. If Arahan had helped bring down Chervil, taking the blacksmith, there would be a massive headache, since they never dealt with Chervil. The downfall should not affect them. Besides, with all the family's immense power, it would not pose any issue for them, especially since the Black Corps can execute anything without leaving a trace. Zad points out that since mages are involved, Arahan can easily handle it. The old man asks if Zad is ready to back up those words. Zad confirms he is, asking Lacto once more to join him. With no better options left, the blacksmith agrees, seeing this as his final hope to pass down his legendary techniques. Zad tells him to prepare for their departure at dawn, reflecting on how he gained far more than expected. He now has connections to the Empire's elites, the Great Cathedral, and to top it Olaf, the last master blacksmith of a lost lineage, he has secured the absolute best of the South, making him wonder what else he might acquire. In Arahan, meanwhile in Nekka, a city in the western region, Rio is amazed by the view, unable to believe a place like this actually exists. Zad asks if she ever traveled here during her merchant days, and she says she has never been to Nekka before. Suddenly, Lisa spots something made of gold and calls Rio over to check it out. The old blacksmith remarks it has been a long time since he last visited. When Zad asks how long, Lacto says it has been about 10 years, noting how completely different the city looks now. Zad notices that although they are still in the south, this area is clearly much colder than the rest. He also realizes that wherever they go, Bahul's white steed draws a massive crowd. Later in their rooms, Rio asks why they are not heading straight to Arahan. Zad explains they still have a whole week before their scheduled arrival. Rio asks if he is heading out, and Zad confirms. He warns her that he might be gone for a few days, perhaps over a week, and asks her to stock up on enough food for the three of them while he is away. He also orders them to stay inside to avoid any unnecessary trouble. With that, everyone wishes him a safe journey. Leaving the inn, Zad mumbles that he can already smell the gold, but no matter how much coin is in a bustling city like this, there are always desperate souls arriving in search of a brand new start, only to end up broken. Soon after, Zad stops by a shop and asks to buy black contact lenses. The shopkeeper finds the request strange but makes a quick sale anyway. Next, Zad visits a clothing shop and asks for their shabbiest, most worn-out garments, taking them right then and there. Once his shabby disguise is ready, he figures he is finally set to blend into the crowd and locate the king of the back alleys. Sometime later, Zad arrives in a completely different, sketchy neighborhood. As he walks through the dark alleys, several people stare at him, which really gets on his nerves. He is starving, but before he can even track down food, a group of thugs suddenly surrounds him. One thug demands to know where he is from and why he is wandering around, saying that if he is a rookie, he needs to act like one. Zad just ignores him and demands some food, which absolutely infuriates the punk. Another thug chimes in, saying they will end his life before he can starve to death. Suddenly, they all rush him. One thug lunges forward, but Zad effortlessly dodges and counters, dropping the thugs directly in front of him. He immediately targets the ones left standing, and within a few quick moments, he has cleared the entire crowd. Zad realizes that even his gentlest strikes are knocking everyone out cold. Since his strength is currently sitting at 70, he grumbles to himself that they could have avoided this beatdown if they had just given him a simple piece of bread. As he catches his breath, one of the fallen thugs groans that Zad won't survive here, warning him that their syndicate will destroy him. Zad finds it hilarious that they call themselves a syndicate, warning them that he is taking it over instead. Right then, he slickly dodges a surprise strike from the gang's leader. Zad silently smiles, realizing he has caught a massive fish on his very first day here. From the shadows, a bystander yells that Zad is in deep trouble. Since that man is the legendary assassin, Kinzura, Zad merely mocks him. Driving Kinzura into a murderous rage, Kanara praises Zad's nimble movements and prepares a devastating final blow. Zad instantly notices the assassin is channeling mana and guesses he must be at least at the 4th circuit or higher. Kanara charges forward with a lethal strike, catching Zad off guard since he thought the whole assassin hype was just cheap talk. He realizes his opponent is actually pretty skilled, managing to put some actual pressure on him. It is only then that Zad notices he is not fighting a single enemy, but 3 adversaries working together. Fed up with the cheap tricks, Zad begins his counterattack. As he unleashes his power, his true eye color is revealed, shocking his enemies when they realize he is a legendary Arahan. Zad decides to test a new attack, channeling all of his raw energy into his hands. The assassins had already retreated, but they get engulfed in the sudden blast instantly. Examining the destruction, Zad is impressed that he could execute an attack of that scale with so little mana, but his moment of quiet is cut short when he hears boots approaching. It is the city guards who heard the massive explosion echoing. They inspect the wreckage and find a fresh trail of blood leading straight to Zad. As they follow the tracks, Zad wonders how to handle this, annoyed that he can never just resolve things and be left in peace. Having no other choice, Zad decides to step out and confront the guards. Immediately, the soldiers bow down, realizing he is in. One of the guards realizes Zad isn't Tund. Zad quickly clarifies that Tund is his older brother, then tells the guards he saw the people responsible for the blast running off just ahead. Zad finally relaxes once they're gone. He thinks about how powerful the Arahan name is here, since people bow down the second they hear it. Then he remembers his earlier opponent and goes to check if the guy's still breathing, realizing his attack was way stronger than it should have been. As he carries the body, he hears the assassin brothers nearby and orders them to show themselves. They immediately start begging for their brother's life. Zad finds it hilarious that professional killers are begging him for mercy. He wonders how they can go around taking lives but beg to save one. The brothers plead for forgiveness, explaining that this is how they learned to survive. They claim they've never killed an innocent soul, only those who invaded their territory. Zad asks if that's really true. They nod, saying their master always taught them to put family first, meaning they never targeted anyone who didn't deserve it. Zad offers a deal. He'll free their brother if they lead him to their boss. They refuse instantly, declaring they would never betray their comrades. Zad explains he means no harm and just wants to buy information. Still, the men are skeptical, noting that plenty of people use that exact same excuse. Realizing the negotiation is going nowhere, Zad swears on the Ahen name that he won't harm them or their allies, but the brothers still refuse. Left with no options, Zad offers a final pitch: blindfold him. Since neither side trusts the other, he argues this is their only shot at building any real trust, since he chose to believe their story. It's only fair they believe him too. The brothers finally agree, but warn Zad he'll have to make the entire trip blindfolded and tied up until he meets the king of the streets. 2 hours later, Zad realizes they're just walking in circles. He asks if they're afraid of the Black Mirror Corps. If so, they should stop wasting energy and take him straight to their boss, especially since the Black Mirror likely already knows not just their exact location, but their entire influence in this city. The brothers instantly panic, wondering if they're being followed right now. Zad tells them he has no idea, since the Black Mirror operates in a different dimension, making them completely untraceable. Shortly after, the men finally lead Zad to their leader. Once they arrive, the king of the alleys demands to know what's going on and if they've forgotten the rules. One brother apologizes and explains that the intruder only came to negotiate. The boss rejects that idea instantly, ordering them to throw Zad out. Zad then pulls out some holy water, telling him to use it to heal his brother. After that, Zad turns to Eddie, saying he's here to strike a deal. Eddie ignores him without even looking up, but Zad steps in and gets his attention. This forces Eddie to look up, and he's shocked to realize he's looking at an Arahan. Eddie demands to know if his own men betrayed him. They try to defend themselves, explaining once again that Zad only came to talk Business, hearing this, Eddie scoffs that all nobles are hypocrites. Zad. He finally locks eyes with Eddie, known as one of the smartest minds in Last. Saber, a literal genius among geniuses, realizing he cannot just ignore him. Eddie claims he knows exactly who Zad is, knowing he is the Arahan who was exiled to a distant detention center. He assumes Zad came to this city to pitch a deal but warns him he has zero interest in doing business. Zad asks how he can be so certain. Eddie replies that it is obvious, claiming all aristocrats are identical. Seeing Zad stay silent, Eddie smirks, confident he is correct. Meanwhile, Zad recalls the genius's history. Eddie ran for office multiple times, but lost constantly due to his low burn background, sparking his deep hatred for nobles. Zad is secretly thrilled to see that Eddie is exactly how the game described him. He steps closer and states he is here for a different deal, specifically to trade information. Eddie admits he is surprised Zad wants to trade info for info. Zad realizes there is no way he can survive in this world without dealing with the Alley King, who is a crucial hidden player. Zad asks if Eddie truly remembers everything after reading it just once. Eddie cuts him off, telling him not to jump to conclusions. Just then, Zad notices the king discards books as soon as he finishes reading them, leaving only one book left on the table. Eddie demands that Zad keep talking and share what else he deduced. Zad reiterates he is here to strike a deal, and Eddie agrees to listen. Finally, Zad makes his proposal, demanding all the secrets Eddie holds on the Arahans, specifically regarding his siblings. Eddie asks what exactly he wants to know, since secrets can be worth money, weapons, or even protection. Zad needs to clarify what he holds and what information he will trade in return, but Zad warns him he will not share any information right now. Eddie loses his cool, arguing that whatever info Zad is offering could turn out to be completely useless. Zad cuts in, saying Eddie is in the exact same boat regarding the Arahans, so Eddie shouldn't know more than Zad does. If they cannot agree on how to trade, there is no point in a deal. Privately, Zad decides to keep pushing his luck, knowing Eddie inside out while Eddie knows nothing about him. Zad wraps things up by stating that since Eddie is not interested in negotiating, there is no point in staying. Once he is outside, Zad reassures himself there is nothing to worry about, confident Eddie will definitely reach out to him first. Anyway, suddenly a voice calls out. It is the siblings, offering their gratitude because the injured youngest one recovered so quickly. They remark that any other noble would not have cared if the child lived or died, then ask for Zad's name. He introduces himself, and the man vows to remember him forever. Zad once thought he held a bias against assassins, but after meeting these three, he realizes they share a deep bond that prevents them from ever betraying one another, making them far better than ordinary people. Zad then asks if they are the Kinzura, and the siblings confirm they are. He marvels at how impressive it is for assassins to reach the Fourth Circuit, noting that having them as allies will be incredibly useful in future battles. The scene cuts back to the room. The Alley King asks why he is back, and Zad says Zad wants to buy the Kanura siblings. Eddie is stunned, but Zad quickly adds that he will pay with information. The king is stunned, shocked that Zad actually returned just for those three. Eddie sneers that this information would be useless anyway because even if handed over, Zad wouldn't know how to use it properly. Eddie explains that those Kinzer siblings are actually the leaders of his elite squad, so buying them out won't be cheap. Still, Zad pushes on and demands to know the price. Eddie makes his offer. He wants to know why the young Arahan, who was exiled from the family, has returned. Hearing this, Zad calls him small-minded for wanting such useless information. Eddie immediately loses his temper. Zad keeps pushing, saying he expected a much better question that was actually useful. Eddie grabs Zad's neck, warning him that his patience has run out. He spits that Zad is just a weak noble acting tough because of his family name, but Eddie quickly backs off under Zad's cold, intense stare, wondering what is behind that terrifying gaze. Nearby, the nervous servants warn Eddie, reminding him he is touching an Arahan. Eddie quickly apologizes, claiming he got a bit carried away, then asks Zad for his business terms. Zad cuts him off and asks who is standing right in front of him. Eddie replies he is the heir of the Ahen family. Zad nods, noting that means he should be employing nobles. Confused, Eddie asks if Zad is seriously telling him to hire nobles. Zad knows Eddie's curiosity gets the best of him, but in the dark underworld, his information is limited. his grand proposal is to bring Eddie into the light by helping him launch a detective agency. Eddie interrupts, saying he has never done that before because regular people can't just buy buildings. Zad explains that is why he will own the building himself, while Eddie works as the tenant running the entire operation. He adds that the famous Black Mirror Corps will handle security, proposing a partnership. Eddie immediately gets excited. This is his perfect chance to gather intelligence on the Black Mirror Corps, but he doubts Zad will actually provide a building and deploy Arahan's elite on guard duty. Zad confirms the deal, promising he never breaks his word, recognizing this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Eddie gladly agrees to seal the deal. However, Zad halts him, warning that before their partnership begins, they must settle the matter of the Kanara siblings and the Arahan intelligence. Few days later, Zad finally arrives at Arahan territory. Rio asks if he is doing all right since he did not sleep at all last night. Zad assures him he is fine, silently recalling how he spent the entire night memorizing the shocking secrets Eddie provided. Those files detailed absolutely everything on the Arahans. Now his main task is to grow stronger and gather allies within the territory. Today will be a massive day, and his next moves will determine whether his plan succeeds or fails. Near the gates, a guard demands to know who is approaching, but his partner recognizes Zad and says they have already been notified of his return. Zad explains he is returning by order of the family. The guard tries to block the group accompanying Zad, but Zad steps in, stating they are his companions and he won't enter without them, but the sentry won't budge, warning that no one enters without the family heads permission. Zad quietly grumbles that things are already getting complicated. He considers forcing his way inside, but that would break the territory's rules. With no other choice, Zad decides to enter alone, promising to return shortly to get the others inside. Before he leaves, the old man warns of a bad feeling, telling Zad to stay on guard. Right after, a woman arrives to summon him, announcing that the Arahan patriarch is waiting. Zad goes to meet him, doing everything possible to stay calm. After preparing so hard for this very moment, he must act exactly like a true Arahan, knowing that mages value pragmatism and he needs to win the leader over. Inside the mansion, the patriarch commands Zad to enter, noting that it has been a long time since their last meeting. Zad greets the master, who immediately asks him how it feels to return to the clan after all these years. Zad answers that it feels exactly the same, prompting the patriarch to question him. Zad quickly explains that it feels identical because the master's oppressive aura remains entirely intact, and that familiar, bone-chilling cold still hangs in the air. Hearing this, the patriarch bursts into loud laughter, though his amusement alone sends a heavy, crushing pressure through the room. He then asks how he should judge Zad as an mage, but there is a dark secret. This patriarch slaughtered his own siblings to seize power. His name is Zenodin Arahan, and he remarks that Zad has changed immensely, recalling that Zad was once just a frail child. Zad quickly interrupts, stating that weakness has no place in the Arahan family. The patriarch chuckles in agreement, boasting that his own flesh and blood would never lack mana. He then questions Zad about the lightning kai he awakened, asking if he truly understands the weight of such power. Zad confirms he does. The leader points out that throughout Arahan history, there has never been a single member wielding anything but fire, their core element, and demands to know how Zad obtained this lightning. Zad admits he cannot explain the exact origin, but suggests that Arahan blood carries infinite possibilities. This amuses the patriarch, who asks if the awakening surprised him. Zad admits it did, since such rare power only emerges once every 100 years, though he proudly adds that this miraculous gift naturally belongs to their bloodline. The master laughs once more, praising Zad for saying exactly what he wants to hear, yet Zad's stomach churns with every chuckle, and he silently begs the man to stop. The patriarch reveals his true motive. With this lightning power, Zad can finally achieve heights never before recorded in the clan's long history. Zad immediately realizes his return was engineered solely to inflate the leader's own list of grand achievements. Suddenly, Zenodin's tone turns sharp and cold, and he warns Zad that he must answer for his recent misdeeds. The patriarch mentions that Zad destroyed one of their slave operations, demanding to know if he knew who owned the business. Zad boldly admits he did, sparking Zenodin's fury. Zad quickly explains, insisting no harm was done since those merchants were bound to get caught eventually because dealing in slaves violates the Supreme Emperor's laws. Zad claims he chose to eliminate the threat before it tarnished their noble name. The patriarch fires back, arguing that Zad's reasoning makes no sense since that trade secured immense long-term influence and generated incredible wealth for them. Zad attempts to explain, insisting there is a massive difference between illicit gold and legitimate profits, but the patriarch scoffs, declaring that profit is just profit, and there is no such thing as dirty money. Still, Zad refuses to back down, arguing that the empire's most powerful family should never touch tainted wealth, because the Arahan clan should only hoard the purest gold. Hearing this, Zenodin demands to know why Zad teamed up with the Bahal family. The chief says that no matter how foolish Zad thinks his father is, the Bahal are their sworn enemies. Zad quickly tries to explain that their paths only crossed by pure coincidence, but the patriarch cuts him off instantly, asking how he dares to lie to his face, revealing that he already knows all about the invitation and the horse they gifted him. Zad quickly defends himself, clarifying that he was never actually invited but kidnapped, swearing he showed that rival patriarch the true strength of an Arahan. As for the stallion, he explains he brought it back as a trophy of war, questioning why he is even being scolded. After all, the Bahal lost their prized white stallion to an Arahan, having their champion ride in enemy mount only boosts their clan's reputation. Internally, Zad rejoices when the patriarch buys his story. Zenodin stares him down, warning him never to try and sweet-talk him again. He warns Zad that if he ever lies again, he will pay the ultimate price, but then admits the boy is not entirely wrong and actually deserves praise instead of a scolding. Zad is stunned, realizing his father saw through his lies the entire time but let it slide, wanting to wrap things up. The patriarch asks Zad what he wants. Zad requests that his inheritance funds be reinstated, along with his own guards, just like his brothers have. The chief agrees, but warns that any responsibility for those guards will fall entirely on him. Zad thanks his father, secretly noting that he must tread carefully since there are bound to be spies among them. The patriarch then shifts the subject to Zad's companions. Zad cuts in, guessing his father already knows about Old Man Lacto. Right away, Zenodin refuses to let the craftsman enter, pointing out that Chervil is an imperial fugitive, but Zad senses his father has no intention of arresting him, or else he would have dispatched the Black Mirror Corps already. Zad asks if the Arahan family had handed the downfall of the Chervil family. When the patriarch asks why he'd think that, Zad explains they never dealt with the Arahans, only with their bitter rivals, the Martins. Hearing this, the chief scoffs, saying he would never get involved in petty bug fights, calling the Martins losers who only dream of rivaling his family. So Zad asks him to accept Lact Chervil, but the request is denied. He then asks for help clearing the old man's name, but the patriarch demands a good reason. Zad argues that Lacto is the greatest blacksmith alive, and the Arahan family needs his talents. The chief agrees to let the artisan in, but refuses to clear his name, saying that is up to the one who brought him. Zad thanks him, thinking that the patriarch definitely loves pulling strings from the shadows. He also realizes that now that Lacto is officially his subordinate, he can use him as an excuse to leave the mansion to search for rare materials. With that, the chief ends the meeting and watches Zad walk away. The moment the boy steps out, Captain Mahidin appears. Zenodin demands a report, and the captain calls the boy extremely suspicious. He explains that while Zad looks sketchy on the outside, he acts like a totally different person on the inside, showing even more confidence than the first prince. Mahidin notes that Zad tried to deceive them with fast talk, questioning why the leader let him go unpunished. The patriarch replies that he saw a desperate look in Zad's eyes. He is curious to see what path his youngest will choose, adding that intelligence alone is not enough. One must be cunning and driven. Ultimately, he places Zad on equal footing with his brothers, declaring it is time to dispatch him to young Mio. Meanwhile, the group reaches Zad's mansion. Spotting the dilapidated state of the place, Rio notes it will require a massive amount of cleanup. The siblings intervene, urging Zad to rest while they tackle the mess, and everyone disperses to various rooms to get to work. Outside, Zad watches his security detail arrive. He asks about their military service, and a guard replies it has only been 3 months. Zad assumes they possess at least 5 mana circuits, but is disappointed by their rookie status. It figures, though, his older brothers likely claimed all the elite troops. He can also sense these men already hate their new assignment. Here still, Zad thanks them for showing up. One guard asks what their next task is. Questioning why the young master himself is sweeping up, Zad explains it as clearly. Because the estate belongs to him, promptly putting the soldiers to work alongside him. He declares that everyone must contribute, no matter their class, because he is utterly sick of endless talk about nobility versus commoners. Heading inside, he calls water mages to handle the deep cleaning. Before long, the residence is gleaming. As they stroll through the corridors, Zad guides them to their quarters. Suddenly, asks if there is any food around, having raided the pantry without success. Finding nothing, he is starving. Zad confesses he overlooked dinner entirely. After pondering for a moment, he asks a guard if Tun's estate is the nearest property. The soldier confirms this, but strongly advises against visiting the master's residence in Yalong. When Zad asks why, the soldier explains that an unexpected sibling arriving unannounced is viewed as an act of war. Zad grins, stating, "That is perfect," deeply unnerving his crew. Meanwhile, at Tun's place, the master is throwing a massive tantrum, screaming his hatred for onions. While smashing plates, he even threatens his staff with death for not replying. The head maid, Grace, advises him to treat the staff with respect, but Tun snaps back, claiming they have grown lazy because she is too easy on them. She warns that his health will only deteriorate further if he persists in eating whatever he desires. Secretly, Grace thinks catering to this brat is a massive headache. Noting her disguise spell is fading, she knows she must weave a stronger illusion tonight. Out of nowhere, a servant shrieks her name. Rushing inside to announce Zad's sudden arrival, Grace rises, assuming an uninvited visit so late is an overt declaration of war, ordering everyone to assemble. However, the maid mentions that Zad arrived completely alone. Grace asks if she is absolutely certain. Before the servant can even reply, Zad flings the door wide open, stunning the room with his unmatched audacity. He asks if they are eating dinner. Sentries immediately surround him, but freeze in shock when Zad asks why they are just staring at him instead of offering a greeting. One of the guards quickly mumbles a good evening, asking what brings him there. Zad simply remarks that she must be Grace, the head maid, and asks if she is going to greet him either. Grace is stunned, wondering where he gets the nerve to act. To act like this, he used to be just a weak kid who did not even need to be kept in check. His strange, powerful aura also completely throws her off. Wondering if they unlocked his mana before bringing him back, Zad demands once more if she will finally greet him. Bitterly, she introduces herself as Grace Mani. Feeling miserable about having to bow to an idiot, Zad scoffs, noting that playing a part of the real power here has made her arrogant, letting her aura leak out so carelessly. Grace stands up, completely taken back by his blunt comment. She realizes Zad is no longer the weakling she once knew, and wonders what happened to him. Not only did he arrive alone, but he carried himself with a fierce attitude, proving he had some serious backing. Then she spots the priest's crest on his chest. Right then, Tun stands up completely furious that Zad did not greet his older brother. He barks at Zad, asking if he has lost his mind coming here. Zad coldly replies he has nothing to say to Tun, calling him nothing but a mere puppet. Tun slams his hand on the table, demanding to know if Zad just spoke to him informally. Zad scoffs and asks if that bothers him, and Tun snaps back that it absolutely does. Suddenly, Tun begins casting a spell, bragging that he recently learned this magic, and since Zad is looking for a fight, this is the perfect moment to test it. Grace steps in, ordering him to stop, but Tund completely ignores her. She grabs him and repeats the order. Tund loses his temper, demanding to know why she is stopping him. Grace firmly tells him to stand down, promising to explain everything later. She then turns to Zad, apologizing for the incident. Zad casually replies that it is no big deal. Grace realizes she must avoid a conflict with Zad at all costs. If anyone from the Empire comes to investigate Arahan, their operations will be shut down. On top of that, the Patriarch absolutely hates the Emperor, which would cause massive trouble for her. She asks Zad what brings him by so unexpectedly. Zad notes that she speaks rather boldly for a mere ruler and immediately demands food, mentioning his mansion is completely empty. Hearing this, Grace flies into a rage, ordering her servants to bring him all the remaining meat and bread. As he heads out, she asks if that was really all he wanted. Zad confirms it, adding that he will return tomorrow. For more, only infuriating her further. Later on, Zad orders the earth mages to dig a pit and the fire mages to light a fire. One guard remarks that it has been a long time since they ate outdoors, since doing so is taboo in Arahan, where only knights are allowed to roast meat outside. Noticing Zad is listening, the guards explain that knights burn a lot of energy, so they are allowed to eat wherever they can. Zad realizes he has never heard of such a rule. Another guard stands up, asking if knights are just natural savages, but Zad cuts him off, asking if the guard plans to skip out on the meat. Zad tells them they had a tiring journey and should just eat whatever they want without worry, announcing that from now on they do not need to care about rules or taboos, because those things simply do not matter at his mansion. They can do whatever they want, provided they finish their tasks. Everyone is stunned by his words. Zad then notices the meat is finally cooked and tells them to dig in. The following morning, a man explains that this building is the only property his late father left him. Sitting atop his horse, Zad points out that although the deed is under the man's name, Tund is the true owner. Falling to his knees, he warns that if they keep the young master waiting, they will not survive his wrath. Zad realizes this is no simple property transaction. It is a clear play in a larger power struggle. The man insists he lacks the documents because Tund naturally holds on to them, but Zad is fully prepared, handing the terrified man contract to sign, explaining that with this sales agreement, they would only need to get it authenticated at City Hall, but he coldly threatens to end the man right there if he refuses to sign. The man desperately asks if his safety is guaranteed. Zad solemnly swears on the Arahan name. The man quickly grabs the pen and signs. Zad smiles, knowing the building is now his. Inside Nika City Hall, the mayor slides the documents back, verifying the official transfer of the warrant. Batty building, Zad asks if they will process the authentication right away. The elderly mayor declines, noting that Zad should face no issues once the final balance is paid. To prevent fraud, he explains they utilize this dual management system, but you and I know Zad is silently thinking that someone is definitely getting cheated in this deal. Douglas then remarks that Zad is quite unusual, since Arahans rarely purchase property under their own names. Zad acknowledges this, but privately notes that he has no reason to create unnecessary loopholes using proxies. Suddenly, Grace's voice echoes from the end of the corridor. She kicks the door open in absolute fury, storming toward Zad. Douglas warns her that using mana is strictly banned here, but Grace fires back, screaming that Zad is the actual rulebreaker. As Zad stands up, Grace snarls that the building belongs to Tund. He calmly replies that he has no clue what she means, since Warren Batty was the registered owner. Grace sternly warns Zad that he is making a huge mistake, demanding to know how he will handle the consequences. Zad counters that she is the one running her mouth with absolutely no evidence to support it. Grace declares that as Tund's ruler and an elite mage of the Mani family, she promises he will pay for his actions. Today, Zad responds that if that is the case, he has his own warning. Whether it is vengeance or gratitude, he always repays it tenfold. He warns her never to forget the Arahan motto: cross him once and you will lose absolutely everything. Elsewhere, Eddie asks if the building truly belongs to Zad now. Zad confirms this, stating he will oversee the property himself. Eddie admits he had his doubts but never expected Zad to wrap things up so swiftly, praising his determination. With that, Eddie slides a document into Zad's hand. Zad asks what it represents, and Eddie explains it is a list of mages hiding in Nika. Zad does not understand why he is handing him this out of nowhere, so Eddie asks if he does not want a mentor, since the Arahan family's ultimate goal is to grow stronger. Eddie mentions he heard they do not have a proper master. Zad admits he has already been pondering that very issue and thanks him for the concern. Eddie replies that since they were partners now, Zad's growth only helped, yet he recognized none of the names. He asked for his top recommendation. Eddie pointed straight to number 1 on the list: Krang Gutra. Eddie claimed no explanation was needed if Zad knew of the legendary family. But Zad simply admitted it was his very first time hearing that name. Eddie explained they were a famous, ancient mercenary clan hailing from the west. Zad asked if they were mages. Eddie replied that for small families, mercenary work paid best. It was the quickest way to make gold. Suddenly, a nearby guard chimed in. The man claimed he heard rumors that the Gutras were the world's finest mercenaries. Eddie confirmed they were highly skilled, but incredibly expensive to hire. The concept of a mercenary mage intrigued Zad, but Eddie quickly spoke up. Gutra was no ordinary mage. Even local beggars praised his deadly fighting skills. Zad agreed, noting that mercenary experience meant plenty of real battlefield training. Eddie added that this master excelled in scouting and assassination alongside elite survival skills. To Eddie, he was the absolute best option. This choice was so perfect that no one else was even worth considering. Zad asked why he had listed other candidates, and Eddie confessed it was complicated. The entire situation was highly complex. Meanwhile, back at the mansion, Tun slammed his fist against the wall, swearing to murder Zad for damaging his property. He whipped around to Grace, furiously demanding to know what she had been doing. He angrily brought up all the lost revenue from that destroyed building. He confronted the mage, reminding her that they desperately needed those resources. She was the one who insisted they needed resources to gain power. In response, Grace unleashed her magical energy, a sinister, dark aura wrapping around her hands. She ordered Tun to look into her eyes, reaching out to touch his face. Instantly draining his consciousness, Grace softly told him to calm down. She warned him that he was being far too loud. Tun hung his head. He muttered an apology. Grace sat back down, plotting how they would end Zad. She warned him she must use the family assets to hire highly expensive professionals. She would use illusion magic to make sure they stayed completely silent. Completely submissive, Tun promised to do whatever she asked of him. Grace patted his head, calling him cute for always being so obedient to her. Elsewhere, a man asked to help Zad, who explained he was searching for someone. The man directed him to the front desk, and Zad walked straight on through. However, Eddie was quickly stopped by strict security rules, left with no choice. Zad ordered Eddie to wait outside. Once inside, the luxury deeply impressed him. A massive amount of wealth had been poured into the venue. He approached the desk. He asked for the guest list, but the receptionist explained she could only share standard room registers, as strict policy hid any information regarding the elite VIP suites. She then stepped away to retrieve the permitted list. Annoyed by this bureaucracy, Zad realized he had become far too pampered. He was far too used to the effortless privileges of his Arahan bloodline. Since the employees ignored his striking eyes, he guessed an Arahan owned the establishment. Perhaps even the first or second son. Because of this, he decided he absolutely should not use his name to bully his way inside. When the receptionist returned with the papers, Zad scanned them and spotted an interesting name. The room he is looking for isn't listed. Suddenly, Zad hears loud shouting. A waiter tries desperately to explain, but an arrogant nobleman quickly shuts him down. Watching the chaotic scene, Zad mutters that the nobleman has a wild personality. He studies the bald, thin man, who is acting incredibly eccentric. But Zad realizes it is not eccentricity, it is just pure, unadulterated arrogance. The old man catches his attention. Right then, Krang senses a raw energy. He quickly realizes it is radiating from Zad, leaving him completely bewildered. Confused, Zad watches him walk past, grumbling about how annoying this morning is. He complains about seeing an Arahan so early, ruining his luck for the day. As the old man walks off, Zad realizes how incredibly rare this is. Almost nobody would dare speak to an Arahan with such blatant disrespect. The man must be crazy. Once they step outside, Eddie speaks up. He explains the man was Krangutra. Zad replies that he already knew that. Seeing his reaction, Eddie instantly realizes the meeting went terribly wrong. He reminds Zad that he did warn him about the elders' bizarre attitude. Zad snaps back, saying the old man is just incredibly rude and arrogant. Eddie suggests they check out the other potential candidates on their list. Zad recalls that the other options are retired 5 to 6 circuit mages. He laments that despite a strict diet and intense training, his mana won't surpass 5. Overcome by sudden frustration, Zad completely loses his cool and runs off. Zad later asks a guard if there's a grudge against the Arahan family. The guard asks if he means Krang, noting that without his tattoo, he wouldn't even recognize him as a Gutra. Zad then asks if he means the forehead mark, and the guard nods, explaining that fangs and claws are their family symbols. Right then, they spot Krang nearby. Zad notices that despite complaining bitterly about the bird on beef earlier, the old man still went out to eat. Zad recalls that tours promised him premium Burdison beef, realizing he can use this to break the ice. Zad reflects on the fact that he isn't a conventional mage who trains by meditating. His ideal master needs to be highly unconventional. Stepping forward, he decides to give speaking with the old man another shot. Approaching politely, Zad calls out to introduce himself to the elder. But Krang slams the table, yelling that his meal is being ruined. He demands to know if someone sent him to collect hotel fees. Disappointed, Zad realizes this man's personality is absolute trash. He immediately discards any idea of having someone so toxic as his mentor. Suddenly, a lethal projectile flies at Zad. Both instantly sense the danger. Moving like absolute lightning, Krang flashes in front of Zad to block the strike. The aconite clatters to the floor, brushing the dust off his fine robe. The old man asks what those toys are supposed to be, leaving Zad. Completely stunned by his godlike speed, Zad asks if he used pure mana. To shield his fingers, Krang praises his sharp eye, asking if Zad could have dodged it himself. Zad nods but points out that Krang reacted first, wondering how the old man could block it without even looking. Without even glancing at the dagger, Krang warns him not to get the wrong idea. He intervened only because it would be a massive pain if Zad died right beside him. Then he asks if now is truly the time for small talk. Zad senses that the murderous intent in the air has spiked. As terrified civilians scramble to escape, several hooded figures arrive and surround them. Zad instantly realizes Grace has already made her move. Krang chuckles that he was right about this mess after all, and Zad replies that he already knew an ambush was coming. Laughing, the old man asks if he wants some help. Zad just stretches, replying that even though there are plenty of them, they are still just small fry. Krang finds his cocky confidence highly amusing and decides to just watch for now, though he notes it would be highly troublesome if an Arahan died right in front of him. One of the hooded thugs snarls at the senior to beat it, but Krang replies that he could not possibly miss such an entertaining show. The thug asks if the old-timer has lost his mind, but the assassins suddenly notice the mark on his forehead and realize they are standing right before the legendary Krangatra. They instantly drop to their knees, revealing themselves as mere mercenaries, and beg for forgiveness for failing to recognize him. Watching this play out, Zad thinks they are seriously underestimating him. Krang is surprised to find out they are mercenaries and questions since when their kind started taking on assassination contracts. They beg for forgiveness, explaining that business has been incredibly brutal lately, leaving them with no choice. Annoyed, Krang tells them that is no excuse and that errand boys who do anything for cash are not real mercenaries. As the hooded men keep groveling, Zad wonders what kind of ridiculous mess he has stumbled into. Krang notes that they at least have decent manners, but warns them that since they accepted the job, they need to finish it. To Zad's surprise, the old man tells the mercenaries to go ahead and finish their work, promising he will not interfere. Surrounded once again, Zad finds the whole thing absurd, especially knowing that Krang is not joking. With a serious look, Zad activates his transformation magic. His body is instantly cloaked in lightning. Krang is shocked to see someone from the Arahan family wielding lightning kai. He stares intently, realizing it is a highly unusual energy. Just then, Zad's guards arrive shouting, quickly surrounding the young master to protect him. They ask if he is all right, and Zad asks how they even found him. The guards explain they got word through the beggars and rushed over. Zad figures the mercenaries must be frustrated, knowing that fighting them now is not worth whatever they are getting paid. Zad glares at the mercenaries and demands to know who ordered the hit, terrified by his gaze. They still refuse to talk, claiming that protecting a client's identity is the absolute baseline for a mercenary. Left with no choice, Zad orders his guard to force the assassins to their knees. A guard with a mohawk charges forward, but is suddenly blocked by a force that pushes him back. Krang steps into the clash, warning Zad that he should back off. Zad asks if the old man is trying to interfere, but Krang explains that no matter how much Zad tortures them, he will not get these mercenaries to talk. Zad confidently claims he can force the info out of them, but the old man reveals the mercenaries are under an illusion spell and cannot speak even if they wanted to. Krang points out that Zad is still. Krang cannot detect such raw magic, but he offers to remove it if Zad is willing to strike a deal. Zad asks what kind, and Krang admits he is curious about his talent. He wants to test the boy's kai, promising to help if Zad can defeat him. He promises to give him exactly what he wants, leaving Zad completely taken aback. But Krang quickly clarifies, saying he did not mean actually beating him in a fight. That would be impossible. Zad cuts in, proposing that if he somehow wins, the old man must give him exactly what he wants. Krang agrees to the bet. Thrilled by the opportunity, Zad realizes he must make Krang his master no matter what. Suddenly, in the blink of an eye, the old man appears right in front of him. A sudden explosion rings out, throwing the nearby guards into a complete panic. Before Zad even realizes what happened, he wakes up in a completely different place. Krang asks if he has never been teleported, explaining they are now outside the city. They are at a spot he visits whenever he is bored, and now the fight begins. Zad asks how the old man used teleportation, since it is a 7th circle spell. The old man scoffs, replying that magic rankings are nonsense and do not really matter. This completely shocks Zad. The old man continues, explaining there are far more important things. At the end of the day, a real battle is never decided by simple ranks. He warns Zad that he is about to learn this lesson the hard way in combat. Zad silently agrees, remembering how the Knights of Bahal were light years ahead of him. Even the academy director operated on a completely different level when it came to circles. Since this old man thinks just like him, Zad figures they will get along great. Noticing Zad staring, the old man asks if he agrees with what he just said. Zad nods, admitting he felt the exact same way while fighting various opponents. The old man mocks him, but Zad cuts him off, ready to prove his words. The old man praises him, calling his raw strength the kind of power everyone dreams of. Now that they are fighting for real, he warns Zad he will exploit his weaknesses. Without wasting a second, Zad lunges forward, preparing to land a heavy blow. But the very moment he gets close, his strike is blocked by a massive barrier. Startled by the impact, Zad quickly leaps back, barely dodging the follow-up attacks. The old man comments that if Zad had reacted just a second later, he would die. Shaken, Zad realizes he would be in deep trouble if he had not retreated. He wonders how the old man managed to cast that spell without any incantation. He explains that once you master a spell, chanting is no longer required. He also admits Zad is surprisingly clever for adapting his explosive lightning magic against him. Curious, Zad asks if his opponent is not interested in his unique fighting style. The master replies that he already read his movements and knows he is a close combat mage. He says his stance gives it away, which is typical for someone specializing in melee. Zad is shocked that his opponent saw right through him before the fight even started. The old man points out that Zad's stance is meant to protect his vital spots. A tactical choice that no ordinary mage would ever bother to make during a fight. Zad is left utterly stunned by how much this old man can deduce at a glance. Plopping down on the grass, the old man asks if Zad has anything else to show. He claims he is already getting bored. Watching from a distance, Zad gets incredibly annoyed. Realizing he is completely underestimated, though he knows he has more to offer. He knows he has to show his true potential right now. Zad has to watch his step. This old-timer is an elite fighter and he starts circling around to distract him, since this might be his final strike. He needs to make it count. Right mid-clash, the old man taunts Zad, asking how much longer he will keep backing away. Zad then triggers his trait and goes all in, gaining a temporary 10-point boost to all his stats. He yells that he finally has him, but the strike misses completely, hitting a mere clone. In that instant, Zad realizes he walked straight into a trap. Caught on a magic circle, he is pinned down, bound by heavy chains. Looking on, the old man admits Zad did a decent job, promising to spare him if he just surrenders. Helpless, Zad struggles to breathe, never expecting such a massive difference in their strength. Seeing his struggle, the master tells him to quit, warning that he will die if he pushes further. Right then, Zad's life flashes before his eyes. He came here to be a true challenger, not to lose like this.